sure this is off.
Welcome to the cockpit. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside none other than Chris, the Entertainer. How you doing tonight, Chris?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate this, man. I've been looking forward to coming on here, talking some Jets, talking some Giants with you. And, yeah, I got a bunch of Jets subscribers, so it's always fun to, I guess, learn about, the other New York team and just talk New York sports, man. There's nothing better than that, man. And I think you got a great channel over here. Your graphics are amazing every time I come in here. But I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to talking some Giants and Jets football.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right, guys, we are going to do this the same way we have done this every week. We're going to start phone call questions at 8:30. And then you'll hear our commentary. But we're going to keep the questions short because Chris is not going to be able to hear what your question is, so I have to reiterate the question to him. Have not figured out the whole, get him to hear
the three-way communication, yeah.
Haven't figured that part out yet. So a little goofy, but we'll figure it all out. We got a bunch of people in here. If you guys want your chance to win a hat, shirt, or mug from the Jets Discord store, I have two things you got to do. You got to go into the description right now and subscribe to the Entertainer. His link is in the description above, down below.
Appreciate
Then you have to go to the Jets Discord and head down to the poll section and answer this question: what team does the Entertainer cover most frequently on his channel? What?
That's a tough one, guys.
It's a tough one.
Hold on,
I don't know.
let me see.
Good stuff. All right. Let's see. I guess I know everyone's going to be dying to hear our thoughts on the Jamal Adams thing, but let's wait till we get some more people in here. Let's start. Why don't you walk us through a little bit about your offseason as a Giant fan? How have you guys improved your team? Where do you think you may have gotten a little weaker? What do you think about the 2020 offseason for your New York Giants?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man, and obviously we're going to jump into the Leonard Williams trade as well, being that that's a Jet and Giant thing. I know Giant fans may not want to talk about it, but overall, I think the Giants had a really good offseason. They did what I wanted them to do. Now, I'm not going to say that every single free agent that they brought in was the perfect guy, but my objective going in, what I wanted the Giants to do was short-term deals. They didn't sign anybody over 3 years. I wanted them to keep that cap space, flexibility to be able to retain guys like Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, some of the younger players that they've drafted over the last 2 years that Giants fans love. You need cap space to be able to do that. So they didn't go hog wild like Jerry Reese did in 2016. They kept the cap space open. And then in terms of the draft, they did what you guys did in the first round. We both have young quarterbacks. We need to improve that offensive line. The Giants went out there. They got who I felt was the safest tackle. Some people may argue Wills. Obviously, Becton has a lot of upside. I wanted either Thomas or Wills, where the Giants were picking it for. They got the left tackle. I know a lot of Giants fans wanted Simmons, but it was the right year to take a tackle. It was a tackle-rich draft, and it was a huge need for the Giants. We haven't had a good tackle in like 10 years. And then they got Xavier McKinney falling to their lap at 37. Most people had him not going mid-first round of the Cowboys, and he fits our defense perfectly. He's very versatile. And, we like a lot of our picks. I mean, Matt Parrott, guy with a lot of upside. I'm sure you scouted him, being that you guys needed a tackle. We got him at 99. Darnay Holmes is a guy we love, very intelligent. He could play both on the inside and the out. He looks like he's going to be the nickel corner. And then they got Shane Lemieux in the 5th. I'm a big fan of Lemieux, where we got him. Most people had him graded as one of the top 5 or 6 interior offensive linemen in the entire draft. Giants are going to be trying him out at center. And then, a bunch of late picks, a lot of linebackers. They took about 40 linebackers in the last 2 rounds. But overall, I really do like what Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge did. And, of course, the coaching staff was a huge storyline. Bringing in Joe Judge, the former Patriot, 38 years old. He's got special teams experience both for the Patriots and Alabama. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see with him, but I'm encouraged by him. He seems like a good leader. And I like the surrounding coaching staff that he brought in. A lot of veterans, guys like Jason Garrett, even though not the best head coach, but I think he'll do a pretty good job as an OC. Overall, I like what the Giants did this offseason. I really do.
Yeah, I think you touched on a good point with the offensive tackle in the first round. I do agree with you. I think Thomas was probably the safest of the picks. Will's probably 1A, 1B, in my opinion. I think you guys did the right move there. Thank you, 2613 Mike. He says, I love the trade, but what if there's no college football this year? Talking about the Jamal Adams trade. We will get into that a little bit later, and we will talk about that topic. As far as your draft goes, I think you guys did the right thing. Now, as a Jet fan, I wanted you guys to regret drafting Saquon instead of Sam Darnold. I was like, oh, I can't believe they passed that up for a running back. That was, what I've kind of been hanging my hat on. And watching Daniel Jones last year, I'm like, you know what? They don't really regret it. He looks like he's going to be pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't trade Sam for Daniel Jones, obviously because I'm a Jet fan, but I am no longer feeling the like, oh, I can't wait till they regret it, because I think he's going to be pretty good. What do you think about Daniel Jones from his rookie campaign? Where do you think he can improve? What do you see in his future?
That's a great thing that you bring up about the draft, because that Jets and Giants fans are going to debate that for the next 10 years. The Giants taking Saquon Barkley instead of taking Sam Darnold. And you're right. If Daniel Jones doesn't work out and Sam Darnold does, it'll look bad. But based off of Daniel Jones's rookie year, I think Daniel Jones did pretty good. He's definitely got some things he's got to work on. He had 18 fumbles, which is the 5th most ever in the history of football in just 12 starts. So that needs to improve. The pocket awareness, we all know, Giants fans, we hear it from you Jet fans all the time. That definitely needs to improve. But overall, he had, I think, 3 games where he threw over 4 touchdowns. I think that's the first time that's ever happened by a rookie. If I'm wrong, you could correct me in the chat. He had a really sound rookie year, and he did everything you could expect. Now, some people say, well, he beat up on bad teams. He did. Not to knock you guys, but you guys didn't have the best of teams. He threw 4 touchdowns against you. He threw 5 touchdowns against the Redskins. He had the great game against the Buccaneers, and he had another really good game that I can't remember off the top of my head. So he struggled against poor defenses. The other thing that I point to, he did really well with Saquon Barkley in the lineup. Barkley missed 3 of his starts. In those 3 starts, he threw 3 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. The 9 starts that Barkley was there, he threw 22 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And Barkley wasn't even himself for half those starts. So I'm encouraged for Saquon Barkley to be fully healthy and improved offensive line. The one question I have with Daniel Jones this year that I definitely have worries. One, the pocket awareness. That goes without saying. If he fumbles the ball 18 times again this year, we have problems. But the switch to a new offense, and it's not a normal offseason. He didn't have proper time to prepare for this. There's not going to be preseason games. So I worry about that a little bit, if I'm being completely fair. I think he could fit the scheme well, though. I think Jason Garrett will do a good job with it. But it may take 4, 5, 6 weeks to get acclimated, and for the offensive line to really hit their stride. I could see the Giants struggling early on, particularly because they're going against some great pass rushers. I mean, you're playing the Steelers early on. They got Dupree. They got Watt. You got the Niners with Bosa. You got the Rams with Aaron Donald. The Redskins obviously got 2 great pass rushers. The Cowboys got Lawrence. They're playing some really good pass rushers early on, and I think the Giants' offensive line will have to learn on the fly. But I do think they'll hit their stride in the second half of the season, and hopefully that's when we see Daniel Jones start to take off year 2, because this is a big year for him.
Now, that's a huge point that you made with the offensive line needing time to gel, because the Jets are in the same kind of boat. It seems like we're going to have 5 new opening day starters this year compared to last year. Maybe Brian Winters starts on the right side for us, but it sounds like Van Roten was brought in to kind of replace him. We have new left tackle, left guard, center, and right tackle right off the bat. And without having a preseason now, with everything going on, it's going to take time for these offensive lines to gel, and it's not going to bode well, I don't think, for either team, at least at the start of the season. We're facing some pretty tough defenses at the beginning. We have the Bills, and then we have the 49ers, and then I think it's the Colts. So it's some pretty good interior pass rush teams, and I don't know. What do you think about this whole no preseason? How is this going to affect both our teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that specifically the Giants, I think it affects even more because it's a brand new coaching staff on both sides of the ball. You have a completely new scheme on both offense and defense. Second-year quarterback, at least Darnold's in his 3rd. But talking about your Jets offensive line, I want to give credit to your team. Last year, I ragged on them. I thought you guys did a horrible job last year with a second-year quarterback with Sam Darnold. You did not address that offensive line. You missed that on the center. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but there was a really good center prospect, free agent rather. And you passed on him. You waited out Le'Veon Bell. You got Bell, but you had no offensive line to block for him. You didn't have any weapons for Darnold. You still don't have great weapons, but at least you went out there. You got a good receiver in the second round with Mims. But you really made it an emphasis this year, the New York Jets, and I think they did a good job with that, just like the Giants did. You really made it a point of emphasis this year to fix that offensive line. And I do think Darnold's going to have a much better year. A lot of Giants fans love for me to rag on Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold's a bad quarterback. I think Sam Darnold's a good quarterback. I just think the Jets haven't set him up properly yet. I think that you guys need to get him another weapon, probably next year if you're picking early in the draft again. But you definitely made it a point of emphasis to correct that offensive line. And I think you're going to see Darnold take a step forward this year. I think Le'Veon Bell will have a much stronger year, and it'll make Darnold's life a lot easier behind there under center. I think Darnold will take a step forward this year.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that a lot of Jet fans were pretty upset about last year. Like, I was all on board with signing Le'Veon Bell. I don't have a problem with that. It's really the lack of awareness on the offensive line that really bothered me under McCagnon. Oops, sorry. It was Mitch Morris was the center that I really wanted. Buffalo, in our own division, actually made a lot of the moves that I wanted the Jets to make. And you saw last year, Josh Allen kind of took that step forward. It seemed like that team is, dialed in to win the AFC East. Now with, the Patriots getting Cam Newton, I guess there's a little more discussion as far as which team is going to win there. But as far as the Jets go, I was really frustrated last year. We didn't have any offensive line help. I want to say there was a stat that I saw at one point that the Jets were the first team to have like less than 4 yards a carry, or maybe less than 3.5 yards a carry, and have like 50 plus sacks given up. Like one of 5 offensive lines in the history of the league to like do that. And it was embarrassing. It was just really bad. And Sam was running for his life, and his footwork.
He was seeing ghosts.
Oh, he was seeing ghosts. His footwork got destroyed. I did a video after the season just kind of comparing some statistics from last year, 2018 to 2019, just to see like, hey, what happened with Sam? Is he better? Is he worse? At least from a numbers standpoint. And with all the injuries, with the mono, with no offensive line, he actually increased in every statistical category across the board. So, less interceptions, more touchdowns, more yards, more comeback
wins. A winning
wins.
record for you guys, too. We were 7-6.
Yep, 7-6. So we were 7-6 with Sam Darnold in the lineup, and 6-8 with Jamal Adams in the lineup. So, fun little statistic there.
That's a good stat.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Leonard Williams trade. Last year, at the trade deadline, the Jets moved Leonard Williams to the New York Giants for what wound up being was it just a third-round pick, or did we wind up getting a fifth for this upcoming draft?
Third and a fifth. Yeah, don't remind me.
Yeah, I was. I'm not gonna lie. I was surprised we got as high of a pick. I was kind of projecting, a third was the highest we'd be able to get. The fifth, I guess, is just kind of a throw-in for the most part. But how do you Giants fans feel about that trade? How did you feel initially, and then how do you feel now? Being you didn't sign him to a long-term deal. He's just playing on the tag for this one season at least.
Yeah, when they made the trade, I like Leonard Williams, the player, and I know Jet fans don't. I think Leonard Williams is a good player. I'm not saying he's a great player. I don't think he's ever going to warrant the pick. I think you guys took him 6th overall, and a lot of people thought he was going to be the best player in that year's draft. I don't think he'll ever be that, but I do think he's a good player. I do think he fits the defensive philosophy that the Giants are trying to bring in. I think you could play him a little bit on the outside in a 4-3. You could play him on the inside, and you can move him around. So I think he brings some versatility. He ranked, I think, first in the NFL last year in quarterback hits as an interior defensive lineman. Didn't get any sacks. He got half a sack. But you definitely saw the impact he had on the New York Giants run defense last year when he got there. It definitely improved when he got there. The trade never made any sense to me. I tried to make some sense of it when they made it because I try to be positive and try to understand the trade. So I said, okay, well, maybe if they let him walk, they'd get a comp pick. They'd get the 3rd-round pick back, even though it wouldn't equal an early third. They'd get a late. But it never made sense because the Giants were 2-5 or 2-6. They had no chance to make the playoffs last year. You guys weren't keeping Leonard Williams. You weren't going to franchise tag him and pay him what the Giants did. So it never made sense. The Jets had no leverage, yet Joe Douglas was still able to convince the Giants that they should give up that price tag for Leonard Williams. Didn't make any sense. The only thing that made any sense to me was that they were trying to save Shermer's job and Gettleman's job, and they tried to show ownership with a player like this. We could get things going in the right direction. Other than that, didn't add up for me. I like Leo. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to help our defense. He's being overpaid. He's not worth $16.5 million on a franchise tag. But we'll see if it works out to a long-term contract extension. I have my doubts. It was a bad trade, but I do think he can help our defense. But it was a bad trade.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess there's 2 ways for me to kind of look at it. I definitely am very happy with the compensation the Jets got, like for sure. But I think in terms of the Giants, you guys have a bunch of cap space, and to try and rope in, certain players in free agency, you're competing with 31 other teams. So even if you have to overpay Leonard Williams right now, just to kind of see if he fits and see everything right there, I think that's okay to do. I'm not against overpaying a player. Like with Le'Veon Bell, the Jets definitely overpaid for Le'Veon Bell. We definitely overpaid for C.J. Mosley, those kinds of things. But I'm kind of okay with it if it helps gauge the rest of the team. And like if that money's not going to go anywhere regardless, you kind of have to spend it. Right. I mean, you could roll it over, but I'm not super against the Leonard Williams thing. I think for me, the ability to, well, I guess Jeff fans are always frustrated with Leonard Williams. I really like Leo. I liked him a lot as a personality. He was always the almost sack guy all the time for us, and it was like he'd have a ton of pressures. And there were stats that I threw out one time that were very complimentary of pressure. Pressure on the quarterback generates a passer rating equivalent to a Blaine Gabbert. Like if you go from a Big Ben down to a Blaine Gabbert, that's the jump you're talking about when you get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So even if you're not getting the sack, you're still affecting the play. You'd love to see him finish off the sack, because how many times did you see a quarterback roll out to the side away from Leonard, and then you get like 7, 8, 10 yards, and it's like, oh, damn it. It's like you almost had him. But I think if you guys have a pass rusher that could complement Leo, that's going to really make him shine.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. The problem is I don't think the Giants have that pass rusher. That's the weakness to our defense. I do like our interior defensive line, and I agree with you on that sense that it's a one-year deal. It's not really a big deal. It's not going to tie up future cap, and I don't see him here long term. But that begs the question: then why did you make the trade in the first place? The Giants have a logjam at that position. They have Dalvin Tomlinson and him both coming up on free agency next year. There's no way they could keep both. They're going to have to decide if they want to even keep one. And if they keep one, Dalvin Tomlinson would probably be cheaper. You drafted Dexter Lawrence last year, who's probably a better player than Leonard Williams. So to me, it doesn't add up. I think you could use that money better elsewhere, whether it's going out there, getting a guy like Yannick Ngakoue. That's just the first name that came to my head. But a pass rusher in next year's free agency class, or a linebacker. We could certainly use a coverage linebacker, something the Giants don't really have. Or even a center. I mean, we could use a free agent center. We don't have one right now. Wide receiver, there's a bunch of good ones on next year's market. So I just think that the money that would go to Leo is better suited elsewhere, especially being that the Giants have a lot of depth at that position to begin with. And if you let him go and you feel the need to have a good interior defensive lineman for depth purposes, you could go out and draft one in the second or third round. So I just don't see him here long term, but he's a good player. Yeah,
I think that's about right. Now, I guess we'll start to work our way into the Jamal Adams trade, because I know a lot of Jet fans are itching in the chat wanting to talk about it. What was your take when you saw the compensation? The Jets traded Jamal Adams. He had 2 years left on his deal. He wanted a new contract from the Jets. The Jets, were kind of at a stalemate. We have the money to give it to him right now, but we wanted to wait, see what the cap's going to be like with no fans in the stands. There's projections that the cap's going to go down to $175 million next year, so you're losing about $25 million off the cap. What did you think about the Jamal Adams trade?
I'm going to be honest. I made a video on this, guys, and I'm going to be honest to all the Jet fans in the chat. If you don't, and listen, Giants fans went through this. We traded Odell Beckham, and I was in favor of the trade. I was never a huge Beckham guy, wasn't a team guy. A lot of Giants fans were, right? There's still a lot of Giants fans that criticize Dave Gettleman for making that trade. But I'm going to be honest with Jet fans right now. Jamal Adams, first off, spit at your fan base, okay? He said, I'm willing to play for another team. I'm complaining about my contract, and I'm willing to go to another team with the same exact contract without an extension to play under the same contract I'm playing here in New York just to leave. So he just said, basically, screw you guys. You guys spent the top 5, 6 pick on me. You're not going to give me my money. I'm willing to play somewhere else just to spite you under the same exact contract. So at that point, he's throwing your team under the bus. He's forcing his way out. What's your choice? And then the Jets, with no leverage whatsoever, this guy is going to command top 5, top 6 type money, not just at his position, on defense. This guy's going to eat up 10% of your cap if you keep him at the safety position. And I'm not saying that he's not a great player. I said it in my video. Trust me, I was at the Jet-Giant game. I saw him rip the ball to Daniel Jones' hand and go and bring it back for a touchdown. He's a great football player. But at the end of the day, he would have tied up 10% of your cap. He didn't want to be there. He was a bad example to the players on the team. He was forcing his way out. And with no leverage, the Jets were able to get 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, well, a third for a fourth, and a safety to replace him. When I saw that deal, my jaw dropped. I said the Jets had no leverage whatsoever. They robbed Seattle, and Seattle could still win the trade because if Seattle wins the Super Bowl, all's forgiven, right? If he helps them win a Super Bowl, which he may, they have a very talented team, then it's a win-win. But the Jets can't lose this trade. Jets can't lose the trade. Now they could do a bad job drafting the players that they got, but you could only judge the trade based off the picks that they received. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the way that these trades are done. You don't trade them for players, you trade them for picks. And based on the value that the Jets got in that trade, you couldn't have asked for more than that. There's no way. You couldn't have dreamt that you would have gotten more than that. The Jets did a great job here by getting what they got, I think, for Jamal Adams. I thought they had no leverage whatsoever, and they were able, I think they pulled off robbery. I really do. I can't believe Seattle spent what they did.
Oh, I'm genuinely shocked. I made a video the night before after the whole article of Manish Mehta came out and he was ripping the Jets, and I was like, there's no way. Like, I wouldn't give up a first-round pick for him. Like, there's no way there's going to be a team that's going to do that right now. Like, I thought we had no leverage whatsoever. And then, same reaction. My jaw dropped. I was like, I don't care if Jamal Adams was a squeaky clean, love the team. If we were offered 2 firsts and a third plus a safety for him, in the best-case scenario, I would have done it anyway. So, like, the fact that we got rid of him for that, I was blown away. Absolutely blown away. And we're hearing more stuff now. Joe Douglas had an interview earlier today, and he was going on a little bit. Jamal, one of the things he was pushing this offseason was that the Jets promised him an extension that they would start talking about back in January, which Douglas came out and said that's not true. The plan since I got here was to make Jamal a lifetime Jet. That's exactly what we wanted to do. And then over the last few weeks, they started talking more and more with Seattle. And, of course, Douglas says the comments from the New York Daily News article, it wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back, but we all know it was. It's definitely what ushered the jettison of him out. Plus, if Seattle's willing to give up a little bit more. But what's awesome about this trade, the Jets got more in return than Oakland got for Khalil Mack, than the Jaguars got for Jalen Ramsey, than Hopkins, than Stefan Diggs.
And we got for Beckham. We got a comparable. We got a first. A mid-first, which will probably be better than your first. We got 17. You figure Seattle be 25, 26. And we got a guy who was drafted in the first the prior year, but I would rather have the pick with Peppers, and then we got a third-round pick. So we got a comparable deal, but I would take your deal over ours. I think the Jets hit a home run with that deal. I was shocked that they were able to get what they got. And Seattle, if they win a Super Bowl, like I said, over the next 2 years, it's well worth it, and maybe they will. But for the Seattle shouldn't have had to give up that much to get him based on the situation that the Jets were in.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was a vast overpay. And look, I'm very happy as a Jet fan. I think for me, and you brought up the name before, Yannick Ngakoue, the pass rusher from the Jaguars. I would love for the Jets to go out and try and get this guy. If you can now, he's on the franchise tag. And since the deadline passed in the middle of July, you cannot extend a player on a franchise tag on a long-term deal until after the start of the new league year. So that's in March. So if you're trading for Ngakoue, yes, he could have been worth a first-round pick. Now I don't believe that's really the case. You're going to see something similar to like Clowney, because I believe Clowney was unable to sign a long-term deal when he was traded from the Texans to the Seahawks. So if I'm the Jets, I'm knocking on the door down in Jacksonville and I'm saying, hey, look, I will give you let's call it a third or second round pick, and then on the condition that the Jets re-sign him or he's on the roster, similar to the Leonard Williams trade. Right. If he's on the roster, that pick escalates, and now the Jets give up maybe that second or maybe a late first round pick or something somewhere in that sort of realm. And if you can flip Jamal Adams into what would essentially be, if it winds up being a second round pick, you're flipping Jamal Adams for a 2 firsts, Ngakoue, and a starting safety. It's a no-brainer for the Jets. I think we now have the cap space to pay a premium position, because I was not a big fan of paying Jamal what he was going to command. I was under the impression that he would try to get the highest money from a Jet defensive player, which, Tremaine Johnson, C.J. Mosley both got $17 million. So that's kind of where I figured he'd want to be.
He was going to get more than that. He was going to want more than that.
I think he's going to want 20, but I think that was like that spectrum right there was really the sweet spot for where he was looking. So I was all about moving him, but I'm okay with paying Ngakoue $20 million a year. The guy's 25 years old. You're going to have him for the entirety of his prime. I would love to see that.
Well, that's the attraction to Ngakoue, because his age. He's, like you said, he's only 25 years old. He's not great. He's not a great, well-rounded player from everything I've gathered. He's a strict pass rusher, very good at stripping the quarterback. He's one of the best in the league at that. And I think he led the league in hits 2 years ago of any defensive end. So he's definitely a really good pass rusher. And yeah, he'd be a big get for either one of us. And at this point, I don't understand what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing. You've literally gotten rid of your entire defense. You had the, and I'm not, whatever. They had to get rid of whatever. They got to start over. But they had the best defense in football 3 years ago. Okay, they were this close to going to the Super Bowl. They've gotten rid of everybody, but they have not traded the guy who doesn't want to be there. They're just keeping him around. And the longer you wait, the less you're going to be able to command. Like, I thought for sure Ngakoue would have been traded by the draft. And they just keep waiting. And like, what are they going to do? You know, let him play out and get a third-round comp pick for a guy that they, like you said, you should get at least a second-round pick for him.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me what Jacksonville's doing.
No, it really doesn't for me either. And now that there's kind of a little bit of uncertainty with the season, I'm still leery as to whether or not we're actually going to be able to figure out how to make it work. I think we're going to try. And I think something's going to happen where something goes sideways and then they wind up having to shut stuff down. But there's a real potential that a lot of these players are getting paid for not, playing much this season. And God, the draft scares me because I know in my heart that I don't think I don't think we're going to get a college football season. I think it's easy to say the pros should be paid and be playing, but when there's college athletes that are not getting paid and there's liability on the schools with the families and everything like that, I'd be surprised if we got that. So now all these draft picks that the Jets just got, it's going to be a lot dicier going into this first round. You're possibly scouting guys from a year ago on only 2 years of film. What do you think that this draft kind of holds if we don't have a college football season?
Great question. You're absolutely right. You're not going to have the same evaluation process. And this draft was kind of like that, right? You didn't get the same evaluation process. You weren't, because of the COVID, you weren't able to do everything that you would normally do before a draft. And it would be even harder this year. I mean, you think about all the players that change, right? Like, what's his name? Gross Matos. Gross Matos going into this year, this time last year was thought to be a top 5-6 pick in the draft. He went in the second round. So players change from year to year based on college. And the fact that they won't be playing games, it's going to make it 3 times as hard to evaluate these players. You're basically going to have to go off a game film from a year ago and a track workout at a combine. So, yeah, that's a good point you bring up. That's something that you definitely got to worry about for sure. And if the season gets canceled, I don't know how they would go about selecting who picks where. I mean, as a Giant fan, I hope that we stay at 4, but I don't know how they would do it.
This is a fun topic. I really like this exercise because I've seen a few different opinions on it, and I think my favorite that I heard of was taking the last 3 years of records from every team, go across the board.
You get the first pick then.
So here you go. So it's weighted differently. The Giants were I think top 5 because of it, because of everything that the Jets and Giants have both gone through. Both teams would wind up in the top 10 because of this situation, but it was basically like a 60-30-10 weighted average. So last year's record would be 60%. 2 years ago would be 30%. 3 years ago would be 10% because there's such a flip over of that. And then I wanted to see like a straight up lottery. So based on picks 1 through say 16, those teams can only stay within that threshold. You're not going to fall back further because you're clearly a bad team. And then the teams from 17 through 32, they can all wind up in there. So you do a lottery and you do it based on, the worst team would have the most, I guess, ping pong balls, if you will, pop up, and they'd have the highest percentage of getting that first round pick or first overall pick. But then at least there's like some sort of, I guess, process to it, I guess. I don't know. I like that idea though.
Yeah, it sounds more fair than just giving them the same pick they had the year before, because that never works out. But in the NFL, but if they did it based off of that, the Giants, they picked 2nd, 4th, and 6th the last 3 years. So
that's great. You guys you'd have a good shot at getting a top 5 pick.
Yeah, they'd be up there. But yeah, that's definitely going to be a huge challenge for both teams. And I guess Dave Gettleman, who a lot of Giants fans want fired, would keep his job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just it. You don't get to evaluate. Like, that's one of the biggest worries for Jet fans with Adam Gase is there's a lot of fans that do not like Adam Gase. And I was not a fan of the hire when we got him. I was a big McCarthy guy. I would have based on everything that happened last year, the Jets had like $80 million worth of money on IR. They had a quarterback that got knocked out with mono. The offensive line was historically bad. So I have a hard time kind of judging Gase on last year. And every time he's had a starting quarterback that was healthy, when Tannehill was healthy, when Sam Darnold was healthy, he's had a positive winning record with those quarterbacks. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that throw shade towards Adam Gase because we saw some really bonehead games. The game against Miami the first time was just disgraceful. The Jets-Bengals game, we were running Bell like up the middle of up that defense, which is the strength of their defense. They should have been running around the side. There's a lot that didn't really make sense, and he tries to be a little too cute with some of his play calling. But if there's no season, and not even just from an Adam Gase standpoint, but from a Sam Darnold standpoint, year one, rookie. Okay, you're trying to like work out all the bugs. Year two, mono. Okay, there's an excuse right there. Year three, COVID. Now you have the worst thing that could happen is the Jets have no idea what's going on with Sam Darnold, no idea what's going on with Adam Gase, and now you just waste another year of cheap contract for these quarterbacks. And oh god, it is driving me up a wall worrying about what's going to happen.
I would think if there was no season, then you wouldn't waste his third year of his contract, right? I would think.
Correct. Yeah. No. That contract would toll. So I don't know what that threshold is because it sounds like if they start playing, I don't know if they play one game, then they accrue a season. I know they accrue a season for like free agency purposes. I don't know if that means the entire contract tolls or if I think the guaranteed money would get pushed back into 2021 if I'm not mistaken. But I think you wind up losing like 15 games of Sam Darnold if we play one game and then it's it's kaput.
Jeez, my God! So we either want no season or a full season. Yeah. If you're gonna start, let's finish it. Yep. You want to get your money's worth out of your quarterback. Yeah, 100%. It's a good point you bring up. And the Giants got their own problems with that, with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, and you want to try to get as much out of those rookie deals as you possibly can. And I personally think the Giants are going to extend Saquon Barkley after this year if we have a season. You look at all the top running backs; they all have gotten extended after 3 years. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey, Todd Gurley, Henry just got extended. I think he was 3 years, and they've all gotten extended. Ezekiel Elliott, they've all gotten extended after 3 years. And I think it's the right approach, and I'm going to tell you why. Because even though people say, well, you could just play out the rookie deal, and you pay him the 5 years, then you could try to franchise tag him. First off, we've seen what happens when you try to franchise running backs. Le'Veon Bell's on the Jets because of it. Okay, and the quicker you get that done, now this is dependent on what happens with the salary cap. If the salary cap goes down, Saquon Barkley would be a fool to look for an extension after this year. But if the salary cap continues to go up like it's supposed to, you want to get that done with as quickly as possible because running backs break down by the age of 30. So if you wait till 25, 26 to give him his 5-year extension, now you're paying him till 30, 31. I'd rather get out of the way till 28. So I think that's something the Giants need to look into after this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think paying the running back after 3 years is a smart move for teams that want to stay in good standing with other players in the locker room. It's because it's universally known that running backs are going to break down. And Le'Veon Bell, while it may have been maybe financially the right move for the Steelers to do, they really soured that relationship. They wound up losing him for an entire season, and they lost, what was it, like $14 million off their cap because they franchise tagged him and they weren't able to actually use that money, even though he didn't sign it. So I like the idea of signing Barkley long-term. I really like Barkley. Barkley's one of my favorite players in the league right now, and I think he's just a genuinely good person. I think he'll deserve probably the top running back contract when he does get signed. I don't remember what McCaffrey got offhand, but it was like probably around that $15 million a year range. And I think he got
more. I think he got 16 and a half, 17. He got a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, I guess if you're making the argument that he's going to get you a bunch of catches as well as a bunch of rushes, then you could look at it as more of a wide receiver. Like Amari Cooper just got $20 million a year. I don't know if I'd probably want Barkley over Amari Cooper. Like I don't know.
That's the way I look at it. A lot of people say, well, running backs the least important position. And I agree with that probably overall, but I think there's a handful of running backs, and Barkley's one of them, that I just look at as a weapon. I don't look at him just as a running back. There's 3 or 4 of them. There's a handful. McCaffrey's another one that they're worth paying that money. But most of them are not. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, guys, we're going to get into the phone calls, but before I do, if you guys want your shot to win a hat, shirt, or mug from the Jets Talk store, go down into the description. You have to follow and subscribe to the Entertainah. His link is in the top part of my description. and then go down to the Jets Discord, head to the poll section, and answer this question: what team does the Entertainer make videos about? Majority of. It's top secret. You may not know what this is, but answer that there. I'll raffle it off at the end of the show. And let's get into some call-in questions. Remember, guys, keep the questions short because Chris is not going to be able to hear any of the calls on his end, so I have to reiterate the question. And my memory not so good, so if you say something like a real long question, I'm probably going to butcher it, and I apologize. But let's get the phone number on the screen. Bum, bum, bum. We already got a caller. You guys save the phone number in there. I like it. Smart guys. Oh, it's my boy Chris from Florida.
Call from Chris from Florida.
What's good, brother? How you doing?
J-E-T-S! Jets, and Joe Douglas we trust, baby! Woo!
I love it, Chris. I love it. What's on your mind, brother?
Oh my gosh, I told you Joe Douglas is an offensive-minded player, and he's doing business. He knew what he was doing, and he told Jamal Adams, and he said in the conference, I am not someone you push around. I'm going to get what I want. If you were going to stay here, it's because I want you here. And I'm going to get you out of here it's because it made it worth it. Goodbye. Do you know right now that they are talking to Jadeveon Clowney's agency right now? They are literally in talks with him right now because of the safety that we just got is recruiting him. And they're trying to get him on there right now. I swear, I love Joe Douglas, bro. I love our GM.
I absolutely love the enthusiasm. I love Joe Douglas as well, and Joe we trust. Do you have a question for me and Chris, or you just want to just like vent all that that we can talk about it?
I wish I could have heard that.
Chris, you got a question? All right. I'm ejecting you from the cockpit. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. But yeah, Chris was very excited about Joe Douglas and making this trade. And he brought up a good point, one that I should have brought up a little bit earlier. So Bradley McDougall, the safety that the Jets got as part of the Jamal Adams trade, is talking with Jadeveon Clowney, and they were trying to get Jadeveon Clowney onto the New York Jets. And I guess Clowney said something along the lines of like, oh, tell him to come out and get me. And I'm not a big Jadeveon Clowney fan. I think he causes too many penalties, and he doesn't get enough sacks for the amount of money that he's going to probably command. But there is a part of me that's like, oh, man, it'd be kind of cool to watch him on this team and just sort of see, what this defense could look like. We haven't had a pass rusher in forever. And while, like...
Who's the last consistent pass rusher you had? Abraham?
Yeah, Abraham. So there's been a lot of reporters that have, like, ripped the Jets apart. Like, oh, they don't re-sign their homegrown talent. Look, they've traded away John Abraham. They've traded away Darrelle Reeves. Now they've traded away Jamal Adams. 3 of the, Hall of Fame potential caliber players that, the Jets have drafted since the year 2000. And to that, I say the Jets trade away John Abraham, but because of that trade, we got Hall of Famer Nick Mangold, or future Hall of Famer Nick Mangold. And then with Darrelle Reeves, we traded him away to Tampa, got Sheldon Richardson as the pick, but then we flipped Sheldon Richardson for a second-round pick for Seattle, and we used that pick to get Sam Darnold. So in a roundabout way, because we have traded these star players, we have gotten a Hall of Fame center, which led us down the road of the 2008, 9, 10 seasons of being really good teams, getting to the AFC Championship behind Nick Mangold. And then, obviously, I'm a big Sam Darnold fan. I love my my Sam Darnold. So I'm a big fan of that. So now the Jets have 2 first-round picks. It's amazing. I can't wait to see how this kind of affects the Jets moving forward. And in Joe we trust. I absolutely love everything that Joe Douglas has done since he's come in.
I think the Jets are set up well. I think it's like what I say to my Giants subscribers. I think if you're a Jet fan, be patient. Realize that this year you're not going to be world beaters, but you should see some progression, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. This is a huge pressure year for Darnold. Darnold's got to produce this year. I'm not saying he's got to be a Pro Bowler. He's got to improve. He has to have a good year because now you got a better offensive line. You figure Bell's going to be better. You went out, you got him Denzel Mims. He still doesn't have great weapons. You lose Robbie Anderson, but he's got to improve this year. There's really no excuses for Darnold this year. So he's got some pressure, but as a team, I wouldn't go into the year expecting 10 wins, 9 wins. You play in a tough division. The Bills are good. The Patriots are good, but you're set up for a nice future with all these draft picks that you guys have as long as Darnold pans out. That's the way I would look at it if I'm a Jet fan. And you're going to have tons of cap space.
Yeah, and there really shouldn't be too many excuses for Sam. Like, yes, the offensive line not gelling at the beginning of the year, that's going to be some type of issue, I think. But we're getting Chris Herndon back. He was a the Sam and Herndon connection at tight end was absolutely awesome their first year together. We lost him all of last year. We're getting C.J. Mosley and Avery Williamson back, guys that played a combined 4 quarters of play for the Jets last season. You're getting, just by the offensive line getting better, you're going to have a better running back. You're going to have more time to let these long, deep routes develop downfield with Mims and with Perriman. Now, Perriman, I'm really high on.
Perriman's a good pickup.
I loved it.
Pickup.
I was a real big fan of the pickup. I think it's a gamble. I think there's a lot of upside there. I think Robbie Anderson was the more reliable kind of target that we could have held on to. But pound for pound, Mims and Perriman versus Robbie Anderson and Demaryius Thomas. I'm taking Mims and Perriman with the upside there over that. So there's a lot of pros for the Jets this year. I think you're going to see a lot of good things. We are going to have a harder schedule, so there is that. We're playing the NFC West and the AFC West, and that's just not an easy schedule compared to what we had last year versus the what did we have? We had the AFC North
the East, NFC
and the East. So it was just it was one of the easier schedules we in the league. I think we were a top 10 easy schedule last year. But yeah, who knows? Let's go.
I was go ahead.
No. You go on. Go on.
No. I was saying I remember before free agency started. I did a video breaking down the free agent wide receivers, and that was the receiver. I didn't want the Giants to spend a lot at the position, but if they were going to go for a moderately priced wide receiver, that was the guy I wanted. He finished really strong with the Bucs. I think they had a couple of injuries at the position, and he had a good 3-4 week stretch at the end of the year. I think he's a former first-round pick.
Yeah, he was with the Ravens initially, wound up going to the Browns partway through the season 2 years ago, I think, and then was with the Bucs last year and played well, but was the 3rd or 4th option when Evans and Howard and Godwin and all those guys were healthy. And then when he finally got his chance to actually shine, the last 5 games of the season was unreal.
Yeah. So I think the Jets, and it was a short contract, right? A 1-year deal?
1-year deal, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was
so
$6 million.
If I'm playing fantasy this year, I'll probably take a flyer on him. I think he could easily be your number 1 receiver. I think that was a nice pickup by the Jets.
Yeah, I think that was a good move. Guys, if you've not subbed up the Entertainah, his link is in the description down below. Make sure you subscribe to him. And then if you want to be entered into the raffle at the end of the show, you have to subscribe to the Entertainah, but then you also have to go down to the Jets Discord and tell me what team does the Entertainah make videos on. That's going to be the question of the day. I'm making it real tough. I know you got to use some brain power for this, but make sure you answer that question. We'll get you a hat, shirt, or mug at the end. I
just want to say thank you to everybody in the chat for keeping the Mets score updated. I'm a huge Mets fan. 4-0. That's good stuff. They embarrassed the hell out of me yesterday. They gave up 14 runs. So let's get a win. Let's get back to 2-2. But let's get to the call. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I have the phone lines are open. I see some calls popping through, but just keep trying. If you don't get through, sometimes when I get a bunch of calls, it kind of flubs up and it doesn't actually push through the call. So we'll see. I'll interject if a call comes through, and I'll. Because you won't be able to hear the ringing in my ear.
All right. No worries.
Yeah,
no.
I am very happy with where this offseason went for the Jets. We focused on offensive line. We focused on wide receiver. And I think the Jets have gotten better in both. And we have a caller on the line now. So as soon as I go into something, we're jumping into something else.
Tyler.
Tyler, what's up, brother? Welcome to the cockpit.
What's up, man?
Not too much. What's on your mind?
Do you... out of the 3 free agents that the Jets have been pursuing, who do you think not pursuing, but who do you think has the best chance of getting signed? Clowney, Logan Ryan, or Warford?
Ooh, okay, good question. So he's asking, of the 3 free agents that the Jets have been rumored to pursue, who would I want the Jets to sign? And the 3 names he brought up were Logan Ryan, the cornerback from the Titans, Jadeveon Clowney, the pass rusher from the Seahawks that we were just talking about, and Larry Warford, the guard from the Saints. Yes. Yeah. Now, I really like Larry Warford. He's someone I really wanted when the Saints initially signed him. Now it seems like the Jets are kind of going towards a very fast offensive line, guys that are speedy kind of offensive linemen. And Warford, I think, is one of the slowest guards in the league. So I don't think there's really a fit for the Jets there. In terms of Clowney or Logan Ryan, both edge rusher and corner are our 2 biggest needs on defense right now. Part of me wants to push for Logan Ryan just because I don't like the penalties that Clowney has. Clowney could be a game breaker. That's the thing. Clowney could single-handedly wreck another team's game, where I don't think you're going to get that out of Logan Ryan. You might get some like good corner play, but I guess given the option, let's say Clowney's at like 14, 15 million for 1 year and Logan Ryan's at like 10. I guess I would take Clowney for the 1 year, given the option.
I like both the players. Giants fans have talked about Logan Ryan also. He's at this point in his career, a lot of people feel he's more of an interior, a slot guy.
Yeah.
He's played both. He's played on the outside. He's got experience with Joe Judge, with the Patriots. So I like both the players. I don't know your secondary well enough for me to speak on it, but you say that you need more corner help. I would still probably go for the pass rusher. I do think Clowney, like you said, he's kind of the type of guy, because I call a lot of the primetime games, so I have to focus on them intently. And I remember I called 2 last year where Clowney he won the game by himself. He's the kind of guy that could take over a game. It doesn't show up in the stat book. He'll probably give you three of those games a year, and then he won't do much else, but it's still incredibly valuable. He could win you at least 1 or 2 games by himself. He's that disruptive when he puts his mind to it. So I think Clowney, you're going to get for a bargain at this point. He's probably going to want a 1-year prove-it deal. If I'm a Jet fan, I'd probably prefer Clowney if I could pick one of the two. But Logan Ryan's definitely a good player.
Yeah, you touched on something good, too. So the Jets have a really good slot corner in Brian Poole. He's one of the better slot corners in the league. So if the option is between someone who might be stronger suited at a slot corner position in Logan Ryan or Jadeveon Clowney, I'm going to go with Clowney at that point. And part of me, I'm not going to lie, if we got Jadeveon Clowney, the excitement that Jet fans would have going into the season for a relatively low risk, like we're not signing anyone to a long-term deal. It's going to be a one-year contract. It's going to be, hey, Clowney, because Clowney wants $20 million a year. So he's going to want another prove-it deal to try and hopefully get to that next season. I would really like to see it happen, I think, for the excitement purposes of it, because you lose Jamal Adams, that's really the rah-rah thing. Jet fans are pretty hyped up about this trade, but to get the shot in the arm of a former number 1 overall pick at a position of need that we've had for going on 15 years now, I think would be pretty exciting if I'm a Jet fan, or even a Giant fan for that matter.
Yeah, the Giants would have to get a little creative. They don't have a lot of cap space. I think they've got $19 million right now, but that's before the rookies signed, and they all signed today. I don't know all the contract specifics. Hopefully it comes out so I get an updated salary cap. And they're waiting on Marcus Golden, who they signed to the tender. He's still got to sign it, but he can't play anywhere else. And I thought the Giants got a steal there. And I'm not even a huge Marcus Golden guy. I thought that he was scheme dependent last year, but he had 10 sacks.
Yeah.
Giants got him for $4.1 million. $4.1 million is nothing.
Marcus Golden, him and Jordan Jenkins are very similar in that, where Jordan Jenkins had, I believe it was like 8 sacks, and I think we got him for $5 million. And a lot of Jet fans were going back and forth on the whole Marcus Golden thing. It's like, all right, who would we want? We could keep both of them. Like, you could almost flip-flop the two of them, and they're almost, kind of comparable. I think Golden is the better of the two guys. But, yeah, I mean, you guys got a steal getting him for, what, you said $4.5 million?
Not even I think it was 4.125. He's playing for the Giants this year. If he signs the tender, but he has no choice but to. If he doesn't sign, he's not allowed to play until week 11 of the NFL season. So he really has no choice. I mean,
he wants his money. Yeah, he's gonna want his money.
Yeah, and if he doesn't play, that's only gonna hurt his. It's not like he's a established superstar. He had one good year last year. He has injury problems. He's not gonna be any more attractive on next year's market if he doesn't play this year. So he's really stuck between a rock and a hard place. So Dave Gettleman made a nice savvy move there, getting him for $4 million.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, if you want your shot to win a hat, shirt, or mug from the Jets Talk store, make sure you sub up the Entertainah in my description down below. It's the first link in there. And then also click on the Discord link, go to the poll section, and answer today's question of the day. The question is going to be, what team does the Entertainah cover most frequently on his channel? I know it's tough. Make sure you answer that and get yourself entered to win a hat, shirt, or mug from the Jets Talk store, and I'll raffle that off at the end of the stream. All right, guys, we're going to open up the phone lines again. So get your calls in, ask us some questions. But remember, keep the questions short because I have to reiterate it to Chris because he's not going to be able to hear anything that you're saying on the phone. Have not figured that part out yet. But I really want this season to happen. I know I've been just going nuts not having sports on TV at all. It's nice kind of seeing some of the stuff start getting back. But man, I need football season. It's the one thing I really need. Just make it happen.
You a fan of any other sport?
So I am, but I'm mainly just a New York fan at this point. I went to my first hockey game over the winter, and that was a friggin' blast with the Rangers. That was so good. It was a game where I don't even remember the name of the player that had it, but he had like 5 goals and went into like double overtime. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, great game to go to. And then I would say, in terms of baseball, my dad growing up was a Mets fan. I have seen so much losing with the Jets that if I was picking another team, I just decided to go with the Yankees.
I can't blame you.
That's just it. It's like, you have the Giants to fall back on, and then you can have your Mets pain. I have the Jets. I'm going to take the Yankees. So it's kind of that whole thought process. I mean, I watch other sports. I could watch curling or like, anything on TV. If I have a beer and there's like something competitive on, I could sit and watch it.
Yeah, curling's the type of sport that you and me can do. I remember watching that on the Olympics a couple of years ago. A guy weighed about 250 pounds. The guy's getting a gold medal for the U.S. So maybe we should look into that. Maybe we could be Olympic athletes.
Pure athlete. We got a call coming in now. Who's on the lines?
Brad from Minnesota.
Brad from Minnesota. What's up, dude? Welcome to the cockpit.
Ryan, what's going on, man? I love the trade.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad. I love the trade as well. What's on your mind, brother?
Listen, I think the trade, though, and the whole situation is emblematic of a bigger structural problem with the organization. I really do. Mm-hmm. I'm a pessimistic Jets fan, but, here's my question. If I was Sam Darnold and when Gase has another bad play calling season, which he's going to have this year, or even if he stays, or even if he gets fired, Sam goes on his 3rd head coach. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I was Sam, there's no way I'd want to re-sign with this organization and be the next, Stafford or whatever. What do you think? Talk me off the ledge and tell me it's not going to happen.
Ooh, okay, good question. So what he's asking, or what he's kind of saying, he loves the trade with Jamal Adams, but he thinks it's something more problematic with the Jets' culture overall. And if you're Sam Darnold and you're going into this year with Adam Gase, and Adam Gase has another bad year of play calling, if Sam does not improve and the team looks like it's kind of floundering around like we did last year, if you're Sam Darnold, do you want to re-sign with the New York Jets, or do you want to wind up being potentially like Matthew Stafford, where you're having some good seasons, but you're not really kind of getting over that hump? You're not getting to the playoffs. You're not doing these accolades that quarterbacks of that caliber should be hitting. Do you think there is an issue with the Jets' culture? So for me, I think getting Joe Douglas was a huge piece of that, like improving the offensive line, improving the wide receiving core, and just weapons across the board in general was really important. When Joe Douglas first came in, one of the things he said to Sam Darnold's parents was, hey, I'm going to help out your son. And he stuck to it. He brought in Ryan Khalil last year at center. It was a whiff. It didn't work, but it was, there's no free agents at that time. There's no trades that could be had. So bringing in a guy out of retirement that used to be an all-pro was a sound move. I think the faith with Sam Darnold would have to lie in Joe Douglas more than Adam Gase, because if the Jets move on from Adam Gase after this year, and I don't want to see that happen. I really, as much as I don't like Gase, if we have to go on to our 3rd head coach with Sam Darnold in 4 years, it spells trouble. I don't like it, and it wouldn't shock me to see Sam, request a trade at that point. I don't know. What do you think of the situation?
I mean, if I'm being honest, the Jets haven't been one of the better organizations. It's just the truth. That's cold hard facts. But as of late, I think Joe Douglas has done a good job. I think you have some reasons for optimism. You got to wait and see how it all plays out, though. Do I think you have anything to worry about with Sam Darnold right now? No. I think if you don't get him some weapons, though, yeah, he might want to get out of there. Do I think there's a culture problem with the Jets? Maybe. I don't know. The Knicks, there certainly is. The whole Jamal Adams thing reminded me of the Kristaps Porzingis thing. He forced his way out of the Knicks, probably in large part because the Knicks are a horrible organization. I don't put the Jets on that level. I think the Jets right now are going through a rebuild. I think that they screwed up year 2 of Sam Darnold. I think they should have focused more on the offensive line than they did, kind of like the Giants did year 2 with Daniel Jones. That's why I credit the Giants. And then maybe this year you would have been able to draft a wide receiver rather than a tackle. Had you fixed the offensive line the previous year, maybe you would have been able to give him CeeDee Lamb, which would have helped them, even though I think Mekhi Becton for your team this year was the right pick. But I wouldn't worry about it too much right now. I really wouldn't, because I do think the Jets are doing the right thing for Sam Darnold. I think that you're a year away from completing what he's going to need, because I still think you need another big-time weapon on the outside. But you fix the offensive line. I think you have at least an average offensive line. That's something he hasn't had since he's gotten here. And I think you guys are headed in the right direction. Now we'll see how it plays out this year. The other thing I'll say is this. If Darnold doesn't play well, say the offensive line isn't that good, but Darnold's not putting up numbers, is he going to be that attractive to other teams on the open market? Are they going to be willing to pay what the Jets might be able to pay to keep him? So at the end of the day, I think if the Jets want to keep Darnold, he's going to be with the Jets. I really do believe that. I think he'll be a Jet.
I hope so. I really do. I think Sam is the most talented quarterback that the Jets have ever had. I mean, aside from like the 1 year stint with like Brett Favre and those types of things, like I really, when I watch Sam, at least from my, I guess 20 years of really watching the Jets, I'm 30 years old, but watching the Jets like actively for, I guess, 20 years, he's better than Chad.
Pennington.
Yeah, I love Chad, but he just didn't have the arm or like that kind of it factor that Sam has. It's weird. It's not a tangible thing necessarily. Like, I think Sam's always going to have a high interception total every year because he's just kind of a gunslinger. But he's the kind of guy, I feel like Sam has the potential to be a consistent top 5 quarterback if the Jets kind of allow him to flourish that way. I never got that feeling with Geno Smith. I never got that feeling with with Mark Sanchez. It was always kind of like, okay, this guy's sort of holding it. Let's hope he develops. But I've seen some plays out of Sam where I'm like, this guy is really good. Some throws, just some games. When he went toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers at the end of his rookie year, that was it for me. I was like, okay, this guy's good. This guy's got it. So I hope we hold on to him. I hope we do right by him, and I hope we surround him with weapons. I hope we get him his offensive line. And I hope the head coach kind of works out. For me, with Adam Gase, you have Frank Gore backing him. You have Demaryius Thomas backing him. You have Peyton Manning backing him. So there's really good players in this league that are supporting Adam Gase, even though he's had issues with star players. Jamal Adams, with Kenyon Drake.
Here's the thing I'd worry
Jarvis
about
Landry.
with Gase, because I tried to back Shermer last year too.
Yeah.
Because I wanted stability. I don't want all these coaching changes because now we're going through the same thing you did. Second year of Daniel Jones, he's got a brand new offense now. He's got to learn, not the offense that he was initially drafted for. So I like stability. I tried to back Shermer. Mm-hmm. The question is, Gase is known as a quarterback guy, right? Or at least I'm pretty sure. Peyton Manning backed him, right?
Sure.
And same thing.
Steve, I'll get to your call in just a second. I'm just letting Chris finish up, and then I'll get to the call.
Sorry.
No,
Shermer had the same reputation. You go back, look at Shermer when he was at OC with the Eagles. What's his name? Nick Foles had the third highest, I think it was, QB rating ever in the history of football for a single season. Sam Bradford had his best year of his entire career. The same for Case Keenum. So we brought him in here, and we said, okay, he's going to rejuvenate Eli. He's going to be able to make him more efficient, and he did. He was somewhat efficient his first year, and then he did a good job with Daniel Jones, which is why I was kind of a proponent of saying maybe we should stick around. But at the end of the day, Shermer was not a very good head coach. I think the Giants made the right decision doing it when they did. If Gase isn't a good head coach, it's better to move on as quickly as possible. But at the same time, the Jets have been an organization that just flips coaches. You can't keep doing that, because what fans don't think about, I say it all the time to my subscribers on my channel, because everybody always wants to fire everybody. When the team's bad, Gettleman's got to go, Shermer's got to go, and it'll be the same thing for Judge in 2 years if the Giants are winning 5 or 6 games. If you keep firing coaches, if you keep firing general managers, who the hell with any credentials is going to want to take the job? And that's what creates instability. So I completely understand why the Jets kept Adam Gase. Even if you thought he was a horrible head coach, you can't keep flipping coaches because nobody's going to want to take the job.
Oh, completely agree. And you are right on two different so there's two components to this. The Jets were not going to fire Adam Gase after last year. One, because of the hand he was dealt with all the injuries and the mono and everything like that, but also because the Jets are still paying Todd Bowles for this year. So the Johnsons are not going to be paying 3 head coaches because head coaching contracts are fully guaranteed. So now you have Todd Bowles getting paid by the Jets, you have Adam Gase getting paid by the Jets, and if you had a new head coach this year, you'd have 3 head coaches. So it doesn't make any sense. I think in terms of Adam Gase and wanting to move on from him, after this year, if the offense doesn't look like it's getting better and Sam looks like he regresses again, I have no problem ripping the Band-Aid off. I think that's fine. Look, I don't know. I think the Jets have been one of the franchises in the NFL that have held on to coaches a little too long. Like Rex had 5 or 6 years. Mangini, I think, had 4 or 5 years. And you just you go through everything. Herm had a pretty nice run with us. So the Jets have been pretty good at giving the head coaches time to figure it out. It's just we've never really had the GM and the head coach kind of together on the same page so much. Yeah, exactly. Now, Steve, I apologize. You've been on hold. Thank you for tuning in. What's your question, brother?
No problem. All right, I'll keep it short. So obviously we know, Seattle will probably be picking late in the first round if I had to guess. But we know Joe Douglas has had some success with, past organizations drafting late. So I guess if you guys want to talk about, you think they're going to stay put with the 2 picks, try to trade down eventually in the draft, like maybe like, convert a first rounder into like maybe 2 or 3 second rounders, that type of thing, or like trade up, or just trade a pick directly for a guy like in Ngakoue. I can't speak, my bad.
No, that's all right. That's awesome. Thank you for the question, dude. And okay, so what Steve was asking was, what do we think the Jets are going to wind up doing with this extra second-round pick? If we kind of project that the Seahawks are going to be a playoff team, we're picking somewhere around 25, plus or minus a few picks. Now, that would give the Jets 2 first-round picks this year. Do the Jets look to move back? Do they look to move up? Are they trying to trade it for a player like Ngakoue? For me, because of the uncertainty of this college football season and because of the everything that could go on for the season, I would prefer the proven player in Ngakoue. Like, if I had to give up, I don't want to give up a first-round pick because of the weird contract situation that you have to deal with Ngakoue, because you can't extend him until after free agency starts. So you run the risk of having to pay him another franchise tag, which is like $26 million, I think, because it's 140% of what the current one is. Or you let him walk, and you're not going to give up a high draft pick for a player in a year. Who knows? If we play 2 games and it counts as an accrued season, you just gave up a high draft pick for a guy that you got 2 games out of, and then he walks in free agency. So
right.
It's interesting to see. I think with the draft being such a crapshoot all the time, I'd be okay with trading back and accumulating more picks and just getting more darts to throw at that proverbial dartboard. What's your take on potentially this upcoming draft, and what would you do if you were in the Jets situation?
Great question. And the Patriots do that all the time, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Trade back, accumulate assets, accumulate. That's what the Patriots always did. Mm-hmm. The Jets and Giants, to me, are in very similar situations, both with needs and situation in terms of I think they need to start getting urgent, and I'm going to explain why. First off, I think both teams need a pass rusher. Neither, like you just said, Yannick Ngakoue, both teams need a premium receiver. Next year's draft is supposed to be very rich at the wide receiver position. The Jets now have the luxury of having 2 first-round picks. I think you 100% have to take a receiver with one of those 2 picks. I'm not saying you got to take it with your first, maybe you take it with your second. Got to get a wide receiver in the first round next year, being that you have 2 picks. And I'm not a wide receiver guy. I'm not big into drafting wide receivers early.
So I got something for you. Something for you, draft-wise. So I'm not big on paying free agents that much money in terms of wide receiver, because I wanted to see like the young wide receivers come in both this year and next year. But next year we have a very interesting situation for the Jets, at least, with Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be a free agent after the year. The Steelers have already said they're not going to extend him. And I don't know if that means they're going to try and trade him at some point this year, or if they're just going to play out the season and let him walk at the end of the year. But Sam Darnold and Juju Smith-Schuster played together at USC, and that is a connection that a lot of Jet fans have started to make. If you're the Jets, I would love to bring in Juju as our wide receiver. I don't know how much you'd have to pay him, but if you could bring him in for next year, have him be our number 1, have Mims be the number 2, or vice versa, however you want to kind of spin that. And then now you have your 2 first-round picks that you can address. I mean, maybe it's cornerback and edge rusher, or maybe it's you could really go a lot of different directions. You could take a running back at the end of the first round, possibly.
Yeah,
same way the Chiefs did. The Chiefs did that, because I love Le'Veon Bell, and I would love to see him stay on the team longer than this year, but because of his contract and the rumors that we sort of heard with Gase not wanting to pay him as much, I could see the Jets kind of going off that case. We got a call coming in. This is on the exclusive line, so let's see who's on this phone call.
Call from
Grandpa Mark.
Ooh, Chris, you know this guy. Do you know Grandpa Mark? I'm pretty sure you know Grandpa Mark.
Mark Israel, he's the man.
Oh, yeah.
He knows me as Mark Israel.
Grandpa Mark is on the phone. What's up, brother?
Well, I don't have a question. Just wanted to say a couple of things. Number one, as a longtime Jets fan, I have not been as proud in our general manager as I am in Joe Douglas since Bill Parcells.
I completely
That's
agree.
number one. But I still would have liked to have seen him been traded before the draft, but that's all for another day. Lastly, everybody who is not subscribed to Chris the Entertainer, you're crazy if you don't do it. I'm a lifetime Jet fan, but if you want the best quality New York Giants YouTuber that is on YouTube, you will immediately subscribe to Chris. And please, I know he can't hear me, but tell him Mark Israel says hello.
Chris, Mark Israel says hello, and he is giving you the plug of all plugs. He's saying, everyone who is not subscribed to The Entertainer, please go down and subscribe to The Entertainer. His link's in the description down below. He's a fantastic Giants YouTuber. I know I'm a big Jet fan, same way Grandpa Mark is, and I follow other YouTube channels just to get their team's insight, especially when, like, the Jets trade with the Giants, and we want to see, like, okay, well, what do we think going back and forth, like the player that we got? I'm sure there's some Giant fans that follow this Jets YouTube channel, because when you get a player like Leonard Williams that gets traded to the Giants, you want to hear that sort of that intake.
Take from the other side, yeah.
Exactly. Chris is a fantastic Giants YouTuber and my favorite of all the guys out there, so I've really enjoyed having it. So, Grandpa Mark, any last words before I eject you?
In Joe we trust, buddy. Take it easy.
In Joe we trust. Thank you so much, Grandpa Mark. All right, I want to get to some super chats. Simon Z, I'm assuming this is one of your guys coming over into the chat. He said, hey guys, what's Gucci? Mets killing it. What luck right now?
We'll take it, man. We'll take it, man. I just want to say, Mark, I didn't get to hear it, but thank you for the plug. And yeah, Mark's been with my channel since like the beginning. Used to always call into my old calling show. So yeah, I love Mark. Mark was always probably my favorite caller. He's awesome. So glad to see that you're here, man.
I remember watching one of your call-in shows the one time, and I hear Grandpa Mark's voice come on. I was like, he's calling in there. I was like, I know this guy. I was like, this is fantastic. And it was funny seeing the connection between the channels on YouTube and the people that kind of cross-pollinate back and forth. Christopher Phillips, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, this is a team. This team is a circus. This is worse than how Rex Ryan era ended. Tired of this SSS. Same old shit, I don't know, whatever. We're in what did you say? I can't read the other side of that.
So basically, from what I gather, he's upset about trading Jamal Adams.
Yeah, he said we're a laughingstock of the NFL right now. We are not the laughingstock of the NFL right now. Let me tell you this. So I saw a tweet earlier today, and it was from, it was someone on NFL Network, but they've been talking to a bunch of GMs around the league, and they're like, the Jets fleeced the Seahawks. There is no way, and you said it too, with what was going on with Jamal Adams and everything, we had no leverage. So let me tell you right now, there's going to be an issue with like the Woody Johnson thing and potentially the comments that were being made over there. And there's also going to be some issues with, the Jets not retaining their own talent, and there's, all these different things. But we're hearing rumors that Jamal Adams at the trade deadline was talking to Dallas Cowboy players and wanted to try and force his way into Dallas prior to like this whole thing blowing up and being like, oh, I didn't want to get traded and this, that, and the other thing. When he didn't talk to Joe Douglas for those 3-4 days after the trade deadline, it was because he was upset he was not traded to Dallas. So if you're looking at the Jets, at least in terms of the other executives around the league, they're looking at Joe Douglas and they're like, you can't screw with this guy. You were able to get, I wanted Denzel Mims at number 48 this year, and we traded down, and I lost
something, right? You got him?
Oh, I lost my mind. I was like, no, we're trading down. Mims is on the board. And then we wound up getting Mims down later. Fascinating. Him trading Leonard Williams for what we got for him. Amazing. What we got for Jamal Adams is nothing short of fantastic. Joe Douglas has this team trending in the right direction. Grandpa Mark said it best. He said this is the first GM that we have been, that you could look at and say, like, okay, this guy's making the right moves since Bill Parcells in the late 90s. So I completely disagree with you, Christopher. I think while this team comes off as a circus at times, and I think last year we probably saw a little bit more of that, I think without Jamal here, we're actually going to be more of a cohesive kind of unit, if that makes sense.
That's why I drew a parallel to Odell Beckham with the Giants. I think it's very similar. Both guys were guys that didn't want to be here. Odell Beckham, and probably Jet fans made fun of the Giants when we traded Odell Beckham.
I was one of them. I was like, God, I can't believe, but you guys got good trade compensation, so I'm really not.
Yeah, but as a Giants fan, I was happy carrying watching the team every week because Odell Beckham was a great talent, but the same thing. Wide receiver is not the most important position on a football team. He was getting paid 10% of the cap at the time. He was a locker room distraction. He said he wanted to leave. He wasn't having fun playing in New York. He wanted to play. What did you expect the Giants to do? The Giants went out there. They made the trade before it was too late. If they would have waited another year, what are you going to get for Odell Beckham off the year he had last year? The other thing that the Giants had to think about was this. You had a young quarterback. You had Daniel Jones that you knew that you were going to be bringing in. Do you want Daniel Jones to be throwing footballs to a guy that complains when he doesn't get the ball enough and try to and potentially curb his growth? So I think the Giants took all that into consideration. I think it's the same thing here with Jamal Adams. And I like I said at the top of the show, listen, you learn this on YouTube. You learn this from talking to fans. There's a lot of fans that are player guys, and there's a lot of fans that are team guys. And I'm not saying that fans that are fans of players are not fans of the team. I'm not trying to say that. But some people can't disattach themselves from the players to the team. If you can't see the what you got in this trade for Jamal Adams, and you factor in the situation that the Jets were put in, you guys had a grand slam. You were going to lose him. He wasn't coming back. He was going to leave, whether it was you were trading him or he was going to leave for free agency. You got what you could get, what you could, and you got a lot. If you wait a year to trade Jamal Adams, what do you think you're going to get? You're not going to get anywhere near what you got in this trade. So I don't know how you're upset with this trade if you're a New York Jet fan. With all things considered, I could see being upset that you lost Jamal Adams.
Sure.
That completely makes sense. But when you think about the future of this football team, you couldn't have asked for more than what you got. And and cap flexibility, that also needs to be factored in. Mm-hmm. I factor that in with the Odell Beckham trade. Odell Beckham trade worked out to be this. We got Dexter Lawrence with the 17th pick. We got O'Shane Zimmons with the comp pick that we got. We got Jabril Peppers in the trade. And we got what equated to be about $10 million in cap space because it was 15 for Beckham, 5 or 6 goes to those players. With that $10 million, Golden Tate. So it was basically Odell Beckham for Golden Tate and 3 defensive players for the future. And you got rid of a locker room distraction. Jets are going to probably end up with something similar. You did what you had to do to help your team for the future. It was a good trade. Maybe you bought his jersey and you're upset about it. It was a good trade.
Yeah.
You couldn't have asked for more if you were a Jet fan.
I was very frustrated. I bought Jamal's jersey last offseason, so I gotta I don't know if I gotta burn it. I've never had a jersey that I despise so much right now. But you touched on it. Look, you are a Giants fan. I am a Jets fan. I am not a Jamal. I mean, sure, I'm a fan of Jamal Adams when he's on the Jets, but I am always going to side with the team over the player more times than not. Unless I think the player was really wronged. I don't think Jamal Adams was wronged. I think he had the plan to get out of New York at least since 2018, and I think you started to see that overflow when he removed the Jets from his social media after week 2 this last season, and then at the trade deadline. All the rumors we're starting to hear right now, it sounds like there weren't many players that were real high on Jamal. A lot of it was kind of fabricated by the media, by the fans. The bravado that Jamal had on social media was fun, and I really liked it. But it sounds like a lot of the players are not too banged up over Jamal leaving. And Le'Veon Bell is... I love this guy. He has taken shots at Jamal Adams for leaving. He goes, yo, you recruit me here, you try to get me here, and then you dip out. What kind of fraud are you? And he's just going off on him. I can't wait for week 14 and see I hope Le'Veon Bell plants Jamal Adams on his ass with just a nice firm stiff arm.
You play them week 14?
In Seattle, yep.
You want to hear something cool?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure we play the Browns week 14.
That's cool.
Beckham versus the Giants, I'm pretty sure that's week 14. So that's pretty cool.
That's exciting. That's going to be cool. Now, there was a lot of rumors at one point that the Browns were actually going to trade Odell because I don't know if it was Odell wasn't happy in Cleveland or if the Browns just weren't necessarily thrilled because they weren't getting the return on Odell the way they were kind of seeing the play out of Landry and that sort of thing. It'll be curious to see if Odell, I guess he's probably not getting traded at this point. I think they're probably rolling with him into the season.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about Odell? Is he playing at MetLife, or would you guys be going out to Cleveland?
He's playing here. He's coming here.
So it's probably better for him that there's no fans in the stands because I'm sure the Giant fans would be ripping into him real hard. How do you feel about Odell now that he's no longer a Giant?
I never liked Odell. I liked him when he was a Giant, but I never. There's certain players I really like. There's certain players I really don't. I never liked Odell. I was not upset when we traded him. I love Saquon Barkley. I like team guys. He's not a team guy. He never was. And yeah, I know people say that he's good in the locker room. He wasn't a team guy. He just wasn't. Some of the stuff they did on the field, off the field, he was a nuisance. I wasn't upset when we traded him. I have no ill will towards him. If he goes out there, has a great year, great. I'm happy what he did in a New York Giants uniform. He definitely was the face of the franchise, but I was never an Odell guy. There's certainly a lot of Giants fans that are, and there's certainly a lot of Giants fans that aren't. I was not. I was happy when we traded him because I thought that there was a good possibility he could stunt the growth of Daniel Jones, and I thought that they traded him at the right time. You look at what DeAndre Hopkins got this year. He didn't get near what Odell Beckham got. You look what Antonio Brown got. They waited way too long. He didn't get near what Odell Beckham got. So I think the Giants made the trade at the right time. Had they waited another year, they don't get near that. So I give Dave Gettleman credit for that one. A lot of people bash him for that. He had the balls to do that. How many GMs have the balls in their second year to go in there and trade away a player like that? And I think he made the right decision. He definitely makes some bad decisions. In that instance, I think he made the right decision. And another thing I wanted to talk about that I think we have a very big similarity, Jets and Giants right now. We're on a time lapse right now. You look at what Pat Mahomes just got. Pat Mahomes got $50 million a year, right? Or whatever it was. 53, I think. And we have young quarterbacks that are on rookie deals. Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. They're both on rookie deals. And if you look over the course of history, I couldn't believe this stat when I read it. Since the salary cap era, 1994, there's only been 5 quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl when they've made more than 10% of the team's cap. These guys are making 20%. There's only been 5 quarterbacks. All 5 of those quarterbacks are Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. If Jet fans want to debate about Eli Manning, it was Eli Manning, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, I believe, was one of them. All of them were all-time great quarterbacks, but only 5 in nearly 30 years have won a Super Bowl when they were making more than 10% of the cap. So I think both the Jets and the Giants next offseason have to start getting real aggressive, not just in the draft, but in free agency. You need to start bringing in guys that are going to be immediate impact players because you need to try to take advantage of the rookie salary for the quarterback position, because if they're going to be here long-term, those guys are going to cost you $40 million a year minimum because the cap's only going to go up. So I expect both the Giants and the Jets to be very aggressive in 2021.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good point. The whole rookie quarterback contract is so valuable. And that's one of the reasons why I was a little surprised that the Giants went with Barkley at number 2 rather than the quarterback, because the Giants wound up paying, I think Barkley at one point was the second highest paid running back, and you don't really get the benefit of that rookie deal. But with the quarterbacks, the way we're talking about it, you very rarely do you win a Super Bowl with a quarterback on, any kind of big money. So if I'm the Jets and Giants, I'm looking at what we could possibly be doing. And now the Giants have the benefit of 1 extra year of rookie contract, where the Jets kind of wasted 1 year of Sam Darnold last year. And it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. I think as a Jet fan, what I would like to see, hopefully Sam just shows that he's a franchise quarterback this year. There's no questions about it, and we extend him, whether it's after year 4 or, however you want to work it. I want Sam to be here long term. I want to get that deal done as soon as possible, because then it doesn't impact you all the way down the line. But I think you could see a situation where Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, because I don't think anyone's going to get Patrick Mahomes money. I think Patrick Mahomes is sort of a special case. Like Dak Prescott, I don't see him getting Patrick Mahomes
50,
money. It's just,
but I think you're talking 40.
Yeah,
I
think so.
Which is crazy, but that's here's another thing I often say on my channel. Some people may not agree with it. Maybe it's a bit of a hot take. I think you could say this about the quarterback position: it's the most important position. It's also the most overpaid position.
Absolutely.
On a 53-man football team, there is no player on the roster that should be making 20% of the cap. I don't care how good the quarterback is. It's going to be very hard to win Super Bowls when you're paying a quarterback 20% of your cap. The quarterback market in the NFL has gotten out of control, and to the point where you're seeing guys like Tannehill. Tannehill was a backup quarterback. He was a backup quarterback before last year. Now he's making $30 million a year because he was in a perfect situation with Derrick Henry and a good running game, and it gave him a good QB rating. You look at Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater was a nothing quarterback his entire career. He steps in. He was in a perfect situation with the New Orleans Saints. They had the best offensive line in football. He had more weapons than anybody. He stepped in for 5 games. He won 5 games with the Saints. Now he's making $25, $30 million a year. The quarterback market is ridiculous, the amount of money that it ties up. And I'm not saying it's not the most important position. It is. But if you don't have that right guy, if you look at the Lions, you look at the Falcons, I don't believe in paying guys that are not elite quarterback money. Because when those guys got paid, look what happened to the teams. If you're going to be paying guys like that, they better be top 5 quarterbacks, or you better believe they're going to become top 5 quarterbacks, because most quarterbacks can't overcome only having 80% of your salary cap to fill in the rest of the roster.
Yeah, and that's huge. So one of the things I was trying to sort of articulate, the Kirk Cousins deal, a 3-year fully guaranteed deal, I think that's something you could see a little bit more of with quarterbacks, possibly with Sam and possibly with Daniel Jones. Another thing that you could see, and we started to see it a little bit this year, is we had a super saturation of quarterbacks. You had guys like Cam Newton sitting out there for a while. You have guys like Jameis Winston, who's taking a $1 million deal to be the backup for the Saints. We're hitting a super saturation point where the rules have been in so so much in favor of the offense that the quarterback position is getting you're more protected. It's easier to play. It's a lot easier to get yards. If you get into this situation where it might just make more sense to draft a quarterback and just not pay your guy, or you go the Kirk Cousins route and you franchise.
I say it all the time. I've said that for 2 years. People used to call me crazy when I first started on YouTube, and I said that. Now people say that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
If I was a GM, if I didn't have a Pat Mahomes, if I didn't have a Deshaun Watson, I'm talking about an elite quarterback prospect, I would very much think about doing exactly what the Redskins did with Kirk Cousins. Keep him for 5 years, franchise him twice, try to find his replacement, because the market is just ridiculous. And I'm not paying a guy like Kirk Cousins, or like you said, a 3-year deal. That might be okay, but it's just getting out of control right now. And the Mahomes contract didn't do it any favors.
No, that was outrageous. And I think it's a good deal for both sides, because now you're never going to have questions about who's our quarterback. What are we going to get paid? What's this? What's that? And you lock them in, not to mention the TV contract that's going to be renegotiated. I don't know if it's after this season or after next season, but the TV revenues are going to go through the roof, which means the salary cap is going to shoot through the roof once this whole COVID thing is kind of over and we deal with the ramifications of that. But you're going to see, I think, a lot of contracts really balloon up, and I would love to see the Jets kind of lock in Sam before that happens, so that way you get the benefit of having maybe not a high percentage quarterback, locked in like that.
Yeah, for the Chiefs, it made sense.
Yes.
Because one Pat Mahomes is worth his weight in gold, right?
Yeah.
You also have Andy Reid. You have the best offensive coach, and you have the best quarterback paired together. They can make up for deficiencies. So for them, it makes sense. But in most cases, it doesn't. Most of the time, teams fall into the trap of, and you see it in the NBA too. I don't know how big of an NBA fan you are, but with the salary cap the way it is, you pay these guys max deals that aren't max players. Because the Knicks did it. The Knicks missed out on LeBron James. Oh, we gotta get somebody. Let's give Amari Stoudemire max money, and it ruins your team. And it's the same thing with the quarterback position in the NFL. All the quarterbacks, once they get paid as if they're the best quarterback in the sport when they're a fringe top 10 quarterback.
Sure, and that's going to be a huge issue. Now, I heard an interesting take from Colin Cowherd. I was listening to one of his videos the other day, and he was saying that there's no quarterback in the NFL that is currently overpaid. Now, he wasn't talking so much about the salary cap. He was talking more about the value of the player itself. So what we're going to see is when a team has a home game, that home game generates $15 million in revenue for that team. So his justification for like Carson Wentz getting a big deal. Carson Wentz put the team on his back. They got a playoff game last year, or at least the team got into it. It generates $15 million worth of revenue, and it was basically on his back. So if that's how you're sort of looking at it, value-wise for the owner, it makes sense to pay these guys the crazy ton of money. But if you want to try and win championships like we're talking about, it's very, very hard once you start getting that high percentage of cap tied up in the quarterback.
Yeah, it depends on the quarter. I mean, Carson Wentz to me is an elite quarterback. I hate saying that as
Sure.
a Giants fan. He's injury prone, but when he's on the field, he's a top 5 quarterback. You see what he did last year with all the wide receivers that went down. They didn't have a receiver catch for over 500 yards last year on that team. He put the team on his back. He's a incredibly talented quarterback. He's the closest thing to Aaron Rodgers in the league in terms of a skill set that I've seen. But he's injury prone. But yeah, he's a guy that I would give that money to if I believed he could stay healthy. But there's not Dak Prescott, for example. I'm not giving that money. I think the Cowboys made the right decision. I think you could stick any decent quarterback in that situation and they could win games. I think what the Cowboys, I hate giving teams in my division credit. What the Cowboys did with bringing in Andy Dalton was brilliant because they forced Dak Prescott's hand. Because Dak Prescott's not stupid. He knows, if I sit out, this guy could come in, he could win games. They've got a great offensive line. They've got a great running back. They've got a defense. Dalton could win 9 or 10 games with the Cowboys.
Sure.
And Dak Prescott knows if he sits out, it's going to kill his value. So the Cowboys did a really smart thing there. And I don't think they're going to keep Dak. I think they're going to franchise him probably a second year like the Redskins did. And they're probably going to let him go.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's something that I've said I like Dak's approach, like not signing the deal. Now, I started seeing some of the comparisons with Andy Dalton. They brought him in, and they're like, oh, yeah, it's like they're almost the same quarterback. When you look at the numbers, it's unreal. I would have never thought that, given what has happened with the Bengals. But, I don't think Dak is worth the kind of money that he's going to command, given the team that Dallas has. Like, I think Dallas has a really good team around him. So if you could plug in a rookie quarterback or even just a journeyman kind of guy. Like, who knows? Maybe after this year, maybe they want Jameis Winston, who's on a 1-year deal with the Saints, or maybe they want, a Cam Newton who's on a 1-year deal with the Patriots. Who knows? There could be some options out there for the Cowboys aside from Dak that aren't going to cost you nearly what Dak is kind of commanding.
Yeah, I mean, Teddy Bridgewater is a perfect example last year. Mm-hmm. He had a great situation. This is a guy that sucked his whole career. He went 5-0. So you could set a quarterback up with the right proper foundation, they could win games, and that's what Dak's had his entire career.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's try to get into some more calls. Guys, we have about a half hour left in the stream. If you want your shot to win a hat, shirt, or mug from the Jets Talk store, make sure you sub up the Entertainah. It's in the top link in my description. You also have to go down to the Discord. Head down to the Discord, head to the poll section, and just tell me, what team does Chris cover? Let me know that on the Jets Discord, and I will raffle that off at the end of the show. We got a caller on the line. Who we got?
Eli.
Eli, what's good, brother? Welcome to the cockpit.
Hey, Ryan. I wanted to talk a little bit. I just wanted to ask you about Jadeveon Clowney, about how he said for the Jets to come get him. Mm-hmm. Would you want for the Jets to sign Jadeveon Clowney? Because personally, I would rather trade one of the first-round picks we just got for Jamal Adams and get Yannick Ngakoue.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Eli. So he's asking about the Jadeveon Clowney potential situation with the New York Jets right now, and would I prefer that over Yannick Ngakoue or something like that? Now, I would not give up a first-round pick for Ngakoue right now because of the contract situation where he's not going to be able to sign a long-term deal with the Jets until after the season. And that, to me, is a big red flag. Now, I'm okay with a conditional pick. If you want to say, hey, we're going to give up a second-round pick in 2020, you could call it 21 or 22, whatever it is. And then if the Jets re-sign him to a long-term deal that escalates to a first-round pick, I'm okay with that. I don't mind spending a first-round pick on Ngakoue. I just want to make sure we have him under contract. I don't want to use the leverage of him being on the franchise tag and kind of going off. So in that respect, if it's a first-round pick for Ngakoue or Jadeveon Clowney for a year, I'm probably going to roll with Jadeveon Clowney because then at least, even if it's just a year, you can kind of reassess. You see the cap. You get to see your rookie pass rusher you drafted in the 3rd round, kind of see how that sort of plays out. And then you also have your 2 first-round picks anyway. So I think I'd err on the side of the free agent over the trade, I guess. What's your thoughts?
I would definitely take Clowney over giving up a first-round. You're not a win-now team. Yeah. You just lost Jamal Adams. You're not going to win this year with Ngakoue. He's not going to make you a Super Bowl team. So why am I giving up draft assets other than to get control of Ngakoue? But I could wait a year and try to sign him next year unless the team trades for him. If they trade for him, there'll be another edge rusher. Or you could find one in the draft. I would much rather get a stopgap guy this year like Clowney rather than give up assets. It depends on the situation, though. If you were Seattle before they made the trade with you guys, sure. That might be different. They're a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl. If you were the 49ers, Patriots, if you're a team, the Ravens, whoever, a team that theoretically has a chance to win a Super Bowl this year, that makes more sense to go out and make the trade to bring him in. But if it was me, if I'm the Jets, I'd rather get a stopgap guy like Clowney and then try to sign a guy like Ngakoue next year.
Yeah, I think the first-round pick thing is the thing that throws me off. It's not something that I do. I could roll the dice on a 3rd or a 2nd or some sort of conditional pick like that. I could get on board with that. I was big on hey, I want to trade Jamal for Ngakoue and maybe some draft assets. So if the Jets were able to get him with some of the assets that we got in the Jamal trade, it just kind of icing on the cake for me. I'm okay with it, but a first-round pick is too rich for me given the constraints that you have on re-signing him right now.
I'm curious because I was thinking about it because he's on a franchise tag. Mm-hmm. If you traded for Ngakoue, first off, let me preface it with this: do you guys have anybody on a franchise tag right now?
Right now, no. Who was the last player we would have franchise tagged? We would have, I guess, Leonard Williams was the only one you could have franchised. But no, yeah, there's no one under a franchise tag right now, and we have a pretty good amount of cap. Actually, let me pull that up real quick. I don't know if this is going to be with the most up-to-date, all the rookies on there, but the Jets have a good amount of cap. So we have $21 million in cap space right now, which actually does look accurate, I think, with the rookies being on there. So $21 million.
That's it? All your rookies have signed and you still have 21?
Yeah, yep. So that puts us as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, top 8 in terms of salary cap right now. And then going into next year, The Jets are set to have $56 million in cap space. So I'm at a weird state right now where I'm okay possibly trading for like Ngakoue with like a lower pick. With Clowney, 1 year I think is okay, but at the same time, if I could roll over this $21 million into a capped year next year, that may fall from $200 million down to $175 million. The Jets are going to be in really good shape if they don't sign someone and you kind of let your rookies sort of, play it out, see how they play. Because if you bring in Clowney, you wind up sort of, I don't want to say you're going to hamper the growth of some of your younger players, but you're not going to see them on the field as much. And with limited contact potentially happening this year and limited practices, I think playing time is going to be important for a lot of these players. So I'm sort of almost talking myself out of Clowney, but I don't know. It's weird. It's an interesting situation. But where were you going with the franchise tag? I apologize.
Oh no. As far as Clowney goes, I definitely wouldn't give him more than a 1 year deal. It would be a 1 year deal. I wouldn't give him a 2 year deal. But the question I was gonna have, because I was thinking from a New York Giants fans perspective, because I don't know this, if I trade for a player that's on the tag, am I allowed to acquire him without getting rid of another player that's on the tag? Because technically, you're only allowed one franchise tag. Of course, the Giants have Leonard Williams on the team. So would Leonard Williams have to be involved in the trade for Yannick Ngakoue from a Giants fan's perspective?
So I don't think so. I think you're probably all right with having two franchise tag players because you did not tag the player himself. I think the Jaguars, they get their one tag, they put it on him. The Giants have their one tag, they put it on Leo. If he gets traded after the fact, that should be okay. I guess, so Clowney, I think, was on the franchise tag last year with Seattle. I don't know if Seattle had another player that was on their tag, but that would have been an interesting situation because that's the exact situation that you're potentially talking about. I'm pretty sure I think you're allowed to trade.
Yeah, I would think you'd have to be. But the Giants would probably have to trade Leonard Williams anyway to make enough cap space to bring in a guy like Yannick Ngakoue. But I think Ngakoue's going to get traded. I don't think it'll be the Giants. I don't think it'll be the Jets. I think it's going to be to I don't know the cap space in front of me. Maybe the Colts. That's a team that I know always has a lot of cap space, and they're a team that I feel is maybe an edge rusher away from feeling like they could compete. Maybe a team like that. But we'll see.
I would say of the teams, I still have the cap space pulled up right here. The Colts are sitting at $22.5 million, so they are in position if they want to win with Phillip Rivers right now. That makes a lot of sense. I could see them giving up a first-round pick just to be like, hey, we're going all in on this season, where like a team like the Jets or Giants, you're not going to be giving up that high of a draft pick because of, we're just not in that sort of situation. Aside from that, maybe the Bills are an interesting team, or... it's really like
the Bills added Mario Addison.
Okay.
And they drafted what's his name? The guy that was supposed to go in the first round. He dropped all the way to the second from Iowa, the edge rusher.
Yes. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know exactly who it is.
He ran like a 5.1 40 time.
Yeah,
he had a really bad 40 time at the combine. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but Epinesa.
Yep.
AJ Epinesa. So they drafted him. They added Mario Addison. So I'll tell you what, the Bills' defense is good.
That
you
whole
want to talk
team,
AFC East, the defense is good.
That whole team is well run. I love their head coach. I love the GM. I love everything they've done for Josh Allen. I like Josh Allen. I really do. I've enjoyed watching him play. He scares the heck out of me sometimes because he's like lateral in the ball behind him, but he's a fun quarterback to watch. And I like it with Sam Darnold and him because they're close since they're from the same draft class. They've just kind of gone through a lot of the same experiences and being in the same division together. It's just kind of been fun to watch the two of them. The Bills are a scary team. I think they're the best team in the AFC East right now. Now, it's kind of tough because with Cam Newton in New England, you don't know what you're kind of getting. It could be unreal. You could see an offense that we have not seen from the Patriots ever under Bill Belichick.
Yeah. Well, that to me is one of the things I'm most interested in. I'm not a fan of the Patriots. I always say I don't have second favorite teams in any sport. I'm basically my team, but I always have a soft spot for the Jets. I have a lot of family members that are Jet fans, so I never hate on the Jets. So I pull for you guys when they're not playing the Giants. But I kind of am interested to see the Patriots this year and to see what Bill Belichick could do with Cam Newton. First off, he's a guy that's always reinvented that team year in and year out, and he's never had a quarterback that could do the things that Cam Newton could do if Cam Newton is healthy. Yes. So I'm really excited to see what he has in store for the NFL with Cam Newton this year. And yeah, I would not sleep on the Patriots. I wasn't sleeping on the Patriots before they got Cam Newton. I never sleep on Bill Belichick. That guy's brilliant. But I agree with you. I think the Bills are the most talented team. That doesn't mean much, though. The Patriots have won several Super Bowls when they weren't the most talented team. But yeah, the Bills are really good. I think Josh Allen's going to have a really good year. Some people don't agree with me on that. I like Josh Allen a lot, actually. I think he's got a lot of upside. He only threw two interceptions his last 11 games last year. He's got a great arm. He's got to get more accurate. But I do like the Bills' dynamic this year. I'm probably picking them to win the East, but the Patriots are right there. I am not buying the Dolphins. I am not buying the Dolphins at all. And I know a lot of people are jumping on them as a sleeper because they spent more than anybody in free agency. First thing I'm going to say is free agency doesn't win championships. Second thing I'm going to say is that team overachieved big time. And Jets fans should know as well as anybody that Ryan Fitzpatrick is a roller coaster quarterback.
It's fool's gold.
Yeah, it's fool's gold.
It kills me.
So I'm not buying the Dolphins. They're a 6-7 win team at best for me. I'm not buying into them. We'll see if Tua is the real deal, but I don't think he's going to start this year. And if he does, it'll be mid-season.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Where do you fall on the whole Tom Brady versus Bill Belichick kind of spectrum? Because it's fascinating. Tom Brady goes down to Tampa Bay with Gronkowski. That team went 8-8 with a guy that threw 30 interceptions. Now, if Tom Brady cuts that down to 5 or 10 interceptions, that team looks like it could be unreal.
Okay, I am a guy, and I may get bashed for this. I've always been a guy that said Belichick was a lot more important than Tom Brady.
Smart man.
I always said, listen, this is what's fun about sports and talking sports. There's no right answer who's the greatest quarterback ever. It depends on how you evaluate it. If you evaluate the quarterback strictly on hardware and, accomplishments, you're going to go with Tom Brady. But if you evaluate the quarterback on the situation that they were set up with, here's what I'll ask you. If you were starting the draft day one, you don't have a coach, so there's no Belichick involved.
Sure.
You have no team. Every quarterback's in the prime of their career. Are you taking Tom Brady 1? I don't think so. So that's how I evaluate a quarterback. I look at Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning goes down. The team wins like one game. They get the first pick. They get Andrew Luck. Tom Brady goes down. They go 11-5 with Matt Castle. And the one thing I've always said about Bill Belichick and the Patriots coaching staff as a whole, I don't want to just give Belichick all the credit, but the one thing I want to say about the Patriots coaching staff as a whole, they've always gotten a ton of credit for getting the most out of their players at every position, whether it's Jamie Collins, whether it's Danny Woodhead, any of those wide receivers that were basically castaways. Wes Welker made these guys borderline Hall of Famers that were thought to be nobodies before they got there. But for some reason, with the quarterback, Belichick's never gotten the credit for taking a guy that was a 6th-round draft pick and making him what Tom Brady is. Now, not to say Tom Brady doesn't deserve a lot of credit. The guy works his ass off. He's clutch when it matters most. But if you're asking me who's the greatest quarterback ever, it's not Tom Brady, not in my opinion. I would take Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's my number 1 quarterback, even though he lost in the playoffs and he didn't do as well in the big moments. The other thing I always say is, how many times did Tom Brady have to go against Bill Belichick? And how many times did Peyton Manning have to go against Bill Belichick? So
that's true. I've always felt the same way. I think Belichick is kind of the ringleader there. And as a Jet fan, I just sort of, it's like, fine, I can admit that the Jets are losing to what could go down as the best quarterback ever. The guy's got a zillion Super Bowl rings. He should have more if it weren't for the NFC East, the Eagles and the 2 Giants Super Bowls. Like that's what's fascinating to me with that whole situation. But I agree with you. Yeah, if I don't have Bill Belichick and I'm taking any quarterback in their prime, Peyton Manning has got to be up there. I think Marino's probably up there. I think
Rodgers, if you're talking.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you don't have to worry about their cap numbers. Like if Rodgers didn't have the massive cap number, one thing that gets lost on this whole Tom Brady thing is that, and I could vent on this for another show, but so Tom Brady owns the TB12 clinic, which is the company that the Patriots use to rehab their players. So in a roundabout way, because Tom Brady is making less money and taking less money from the salary cap, but still getting paid from that rehabilitation center as the owner, that money's not getting counted towards salary cap. So when you have a top 5 quarterback or top 3, top 1, whatever quarterback you want to say Tom Brady is, but he's getting paid like a top 20 quarterback, I mean, that is immensely.
That's a credit to Tom Brady, by the way. That's not a knock on Tom Brady. He wanted to win that bad. Now, granted, he's got a supermodel wife, so not everybody's in the same situation as him. She makes more than he does, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
But he he never had that obstacle, and that's a credit to him. He didn't want to create that obstacle because he wanted to win, but he never took the 15-20% of the salary cap that some of these other quarterbacks did. He always had the benefit of being 8 to 10% of the team's cap, and they were able to fill in more holes because of it.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge, and I don't know if you're really going to get another guy quite like that. It might take someone having a crazy wealthy wife to be able to forego some massive contract years. I think, God, I wish I had the stats in front of me, but I wrote down for a while. I think Tom Brady was only in the top 10 of like highest paid quarterbacks like once in his career. Everything else has been like drastically lower, and it's been frustrating for me because I feel like when I see it, it's like, man, there should almost be a fixed percentage for the quarterback. Like there's the salary cap, and then there's the quarterback. Like, let's take the quarterback out of the conversation. Whatever they get paid is what they get paid. It's what they're worth to your team. And then you have the rest of the salary cap. Or you could do a cap by position.
I've talked about that before. You could do a salary cap by position. Another thing that's really screwed up in the NFL right now is we talked about the running back position earlier. Teams wear these guys into the ground, and by the time they hit free agency, for a quarterback, it's easy. These guys play till 35, 40 with the new rules. Running backs get used and abused their first 5 years, and nobody wants them after that. So that's bad too, because a running back's best years are in the beginning of their career. By the time they get to that second contract, nobody wants them. So there's a lot of issues for me with the salary cap.
Yeah, and it really all comes down for me to how weak the NFL Players Association is compared to the other major sports leagues around the world. When you look at MLB, NBA, like any of these other other sporting leagues, their players associations all get guaranteed contracts. They're all very strong. The football shelf life is only 3 years, so the NFL never really has to worry about a lockout for a season because the players need to get paid. If the average career is only 3 years, to lose 1/3 of your salary, and most of these guys are getting pushed through college, they're not really earning a degree. So if they don't make it in the NFL, what are they going to wind up doing? And the rookie pay scale is an interesting piece to the salary cap for me, because you have players and veterans. The rookie pay scale is a thing because the veterans want more money. That's what it is. And the rookies that are not in the league don't have a say in this rookie pay scale. So I think it's a good thing because you don't have the Sam Bradford making $1 zillion and crippling your cap. But then you wind up in this weird sort of state where players are almost forced like into cheap like I almost wish that the running back, when drafted, only got a 3-year deal. Like regardless of where they were, it just kind of like, because of the shelf life of like career, that's almost how the contract I feel like should be worked.
No, you're absolutely right. That is the way it should be worked.
It's totally screwy, because I mean you could have Saquon Barkley, who could be phenomenal through 29, 30 years of age, and I mean just like Le'Veon Bell, he got franchise tagged twice. It's tough. So a lot of people got on Le'Veon Bell for not signing the big deal that the Steelers put forward, and he lost a year of money and all this different stuff. The contract that was offered to him was basically a franchise tag with franchise tags added on each year after that. That was they could have cut him after year one. He would have really only been guaranteed $10 million of the like 60 or whatever that it was like looked like.
Right.
And then they were just going to run his ass into the ground. They were going to give him 400 touches. They were going to pound him right up the middle. And it's not fair for the running backs. I feel bad because that's probably my favorite position to watch across the NFL landscape. And it's been devalued so much.
Yeah, well, no, it definitely has. The running back by committee, which was kind of started by the Patriots. The Giants obviously did it also during their Super Bowl year. Yeah, it's definitely been devalued because I remember, well, we're around the same age. I'm 34. I remember growing up as a kid, the best players on the teams were your running backs, or you know, those were the
Curtis
guys.
Martin.
Curtis, Emmitt Smith, Curtis Martin, Barry Sanders. So many, Terrell Davis, and the quarterbacks always get the credit no matter what. And there's been teams where I'm like you look at the Rams. Kurt Warner gets all the credit.
Marshall Faulk
to me made Kurt Warner. Terrell Davis, John Elway gets all the credit because he was John Elway, and John Elway was a great quarterback. But at that point, he was 40 years old. Terrell Davis was the driving force there. There's a number of others. Marshawn Lynch with the Seahawks. Russell Wilson was still a game manager early on in his career. So I still think great running backs can be part of a Super Bowl winning roster if you build the team around them properly. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they run them into the ground. They ruin their careers early on, and they're not worth what they are. So that it's not just with the quarterback position. There's a lot of issues with the salary cap in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, you have about 10 minutes before the end of the stream when we raffle off the hat, shirt, or mug from the Jets Talk store. So if you want your chance to get entered into that raffle, head into the description, follow the Entertainer, follow Chris on his YouTube page, and then head down to the Jets Discord, go down to the poll section, and answer this question: what team does Chris make videos for? And then I will raffle that off in about 5 minutes or so. So make sure you get in that before we do that. Let's see if we can get to one more phone call. I'll try to get to one more before we kind of say some closing thoughts and go into the raffle. So guys, remember, keep the question short because Chris is not going to be able to hear you on the phone. I'm going to have to reiterate the question. But let's see who we can get in here one last time. Chris, I want to say thank you before we get another call on for coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun. We've talked a little bit. I've seen you pop into my comments occasionally, and it's been a lot of fun. I've really had a good time talking with you.
I'd love to do it again. Whenever you want to do something, you come on my channel, I come back on yours. I don't care. I always love talking sports. So whenever I get an opportunity to work with a guy that I like, I'm all for it. I think you got a great channel, and yeah, man, I'm enjoying myself as well. Yeah, awesome, dude. I've grown to have a better appreciation for the Giants from watching your channel and everything that goes on there, and it helps me maybe not lose my top as much on some stuff. So you get to see Giants fans' misery.
Oh yeah, well it's nice because it's like, okay, I'm not the only one that's like
Chris
doom and gloom sometimes.
To accept,
right.
press
And
one.
we got
To
one
send a
more caller
voicemail,
on the
press
line.
2.
Let's see. Oh, it's Chris from Florida again. What's up, brother?
Hey, man. Sorry to fill up your one call, but
That's all
I
right.
wanted to ask my question before I got the chance because it got disconnected.
Sure.
What I wanted to ask was, obviously, since this is Joe Douglas's first draft on the field, and we're still even wondering how well this season is going to continue, we've all felt really good about his draft picks and the team he put around together for this year. To look forward in the future, because we're worried about Sam Darnold's development and the offseason, I wanted to get both of you guys' take, you and Chris's. How confident would you be? Maybe you have to wait after this year seeing the draft pick, or you feel confident enough from the draft itself. How confident are you in Joe Douglas's options for picking a new coach? Because it seems like he already had a plan for the future, especially mentioning that Jamal Adams was part of a future plan when he started and came into the franchise. So just wanted to get you guys an insight on that. Thank you, Chris, the Entertainer, for your content, man. I'm a big fan of yours. And go Jets, guys. Go Jets.
Good stuff, Chris. Good stuff. All right, so his question was, how much faith do I have in Joe Douglas potentially having to find a new head coach? Because it seemed like Joe Douglas had a plan initially to make Jamal a lifetime Jet, and then that kind of pivoted. We now traded him. Now what's going on with the Jets? Now, I will say this. The Giants also said they were planning to keep Odell Beckham Jr., and they wound up moving him. So you can't always believe everything that the GM says on face value because he's going to say the right things to help the team in the best sort of situation, get the most trade compensation you can get. In terms of finding another head coach and the weird sort of flux with the season and everything that's going on, Gase is going to get an entire year to prove he's the head coach, whether it's this year or next year, depending on what goes on. Now, if Douglas had to go out and get a head coach, based on like the free agent moves that he's made, the trades that he's made, and the contracts that he's signed in free agency, it seems like he's got a pretty good pulse on the NFL landscape and what he can and can't get. So if he had to go out and get another head coach, I think there's going to be guys that are going to want to play for him based on just some of what we're looking at. I do think there's a strong connection there, like, because you got to remember the Jets hired Joe Douglas, and part of that, process was, hey, you're coming in knowing Gase is your coach. Are you cool with that? And he's just like, yeah, definitely. So I'm fine with him. I don't think he's necessarily locked in with Gase. Like, I think we could move on from him, but I'm definitely confident in Joe Douglas being able to find a new head coach if we do have to move on from Adam Gase.
Yeah, my phone died, so I can't see the chat right now, but I saw Jake in there earlier, who's a great subscriber of mine. He brought up a great suggestion. That was a while ago. Eric Bieniemy could be the Jets head coach next year. He obviously was a popular potential choice. The Giants interviewed him, the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. I could see that. I would think I think the Jets would want to stay with an offensive-minded coach, just because you want Sam Darnold to mature. And obviously, even though Reed calls the plays there, Bieniemy's known to have a really good offensive mind, and he's going to be one of the most sought-after coaches. A lot of people said, how did he not get a job this time around? So if the Jets are looking for a coach, Bieniemy could make a lot of sense next year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how long Bieniemy's been with Andy Reid. I guess Andy Reid wouldn't have been with Douglas at any point anyway. But I wonder. My one fear with Bieniemy is he's been a hot name for the last 2 years and still hasn't gotten the opportunity to be the head coach. So is there something in league circles where they maybe think that Andy Reid is the guy that makes everything click in Kansas City, and maybe that's not quite there with Bieniemy? That would be my only concern with it. Other than that, I do like him. I think him, or even I know a lot of Jet fans really wanted Matt Rule, but Matt Rule's in Carolina. I have no idea. I don't know who. Bieniemy is going to be probably the popular pick, I think, if you had to poll people in terms of a new head coach that isn't, obviously.
I agree with you, though, because I remember when the Giants interviewed a bunch, and maybe some of these guys will be guys you interview. We interviewed Don Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. We interviewed Eric Bieniemy. Who else did we interview? We interviewed the DB's coach from the Cowboys, Chris Richard. We interviewed obviously McCarthy, who ended up with the Cowboys. But I think that was my concern as well when I did the video on him, when I did the research. I'm like, yeah, he sounds great. The Chiefs have had a great offense, and the players all say great things about him, but he's not calling the plays. And Andy Reid has always been an offensive mastermind. So that was why I was a little reluctant for the Giants to hire him as well. So I think that's a fair concern.
So I really liked what you guys did with your head coach, and it's something that I've been more on board with over the course of the last few years, mainly because I love the Baltimore Ravens head coach Harbaugh. Like, he is absolutely fantastic. And so he was a special teams coach. You guys hired Joe Judge, who is a special teams coach. Now, people are going to say, hey, why are you all about the special teams coach? Well, special teams coach deals with the defensive players. He deals with the offensive players. He deals with the special teams players. He knows how to talk across the board to all these different players. Where Adam Gase, we've heard the reports from Jamal Adams, which I do believe is true, that Adam Gase kind of goes into his own little turtle shell and lets other coaches handle some of the discipline and things of that nature. He doesn't have a relationship with the defensive guys. He's really just kind of with the offensive players. And I think having a special teams coach as your head coach creates a very well-rounded individual that knows how to lean on the other coordinators and everything of that nature. So if it were me, I would love to go the special teams coordinator. If there is a hot name out there, I don't know who that would be, but I really like what the Giants did with Joe Judge.
It's a great point you bring up. And before the coaching search, I didn't, I did my research on him because I saw that they were interviewing him. Never thought in a million years the Giants would hire him. It's not the Giant way traditionally. They're usually going to go after more of a proven commodity. And nobody even knew who Joe Judge was. So I didn't know who he was when I first heard that they were interviewing him. But,
I didn't.
Yeah, they're in your division. But when you talk about the special teams coordinator, I never thought about it until they started doing it. I'm like, you're absolutely right. Not only do they have experience on both offense and defense, what's a special teams coordinator's job? His job is to get the most out of guys that are a step away from bagging groceries. So he has to get the most out of the least talented players. So yeah, I agree with you. And you bring up Harbaugh. There's a couple of others. I don't know. I don't remember if Tomlin was a special teams guy, but I know he was a guy with not a lot of credentials when he got the job. But I'm excited about Judge. I'm not going to fully judge it until a couple of years down the line. Is especially with the pandemic and everything else, he's had to deal with a lot. Not a normal offseason, but I like everything I've seen so far. I think he's going to be a really good head coach. I'm excited about him, and I think the fact that he was a special teams coordinator is valuable, like you just said, because when you look at the Giants, the last two head coaches that they brought in here, kind of like what you were saying about Gaze, they were specialists. They were offensive specialists. Pat Sherman was an offensive quarterback guy. The same for McAdoo. I like a well-rounded coach to be my head coach. So
sure,
I was happy with the selection. And if I was a Jet fan, I'd probably want something similar if you could find it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, you've had your chance to enter into the raffle for today's hat, shirt, or mug giveaway. So, Chris, give me a number 1 through 10, and then give me a number 1 through 5.
1 through 10. Okay, I'm going to go with 10 for Eli.
Okay, and then now give me a number 1 through 5, and then that'll be how I sort of like raffle everything. 4?
4 for our Super Bowls.
Okay. Oh man, you're good. You're good. All right, so let me go through here. I do like a weird thing. I'll skip names occasionally, and I'll go up and down this whole like list of people that entered in. All right, so tonight's winner for the hat, shirt, or mug giveaway is going to be Moose Man over on the Jets Discord. Hit me up with your contact information over there, and I will send you out a hat, shirt, or mug from the store. Chris, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I really did have a lot of fun with this. I'm glad you reached out to to do this stream. I certainly would love to have you on again. And, any last words? Plug yourself. Let everyone know where they could find you.
First off, thank you again for having me on. I had an absolute blast. I think it's cool to have a New York Jet, New York Giant dynamic. Would love to do it again. Obviously, when you're in New York, you follow both teams a little bit. So, you like to keep tabs of your brother. But I had an absolute blast coming on. Yeah, if you want to follow me, like you said, you can follow me in the link below. I talk Giants. That's what I am. I'm a Giants fan. But I mix in a little Mets. I do Met streams. I'm a big Met fan. I do a little Knicks as well, especially during the offseason, during free agency and the draft. So I try to talk about the teams that I like. I do a little bit of broad NFL, like I did a video on the trade you guys just made, but I'm predominantly Giants. But if you want to keep tab on the Giants, please come on over, check out the channel. And man, again, thank you for having me on. Had a lot of fun and look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you flying with me. This is Jets Talk, signing off. JETS.